Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Becomes Ghost Rider? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku was walking home from school after a long day of being a training dummy. He was covered in bandages and scars, while his eyes had bags under them. Izuku passed a TV store to see the UA Sports Festival being broadcasted around Japan. His sister, Izuku Midorya, was at UA, a prestigious school for the ones who want to become a hero. She was currently fighting one of her childhood friend, Shoto Todoroki. Izuku kept on walking, ignoring the crowd's words. Wow, that girl's really good. Yeah, I think her name was Izuku Midorya? Damn. Her family must be proud. Hey, I know the Midoryas. Really? What kind of family are they? Oh, they are really kind people. She's an only child, you know. Izuku reached his home and unlocked the door to let himself in. Mom? Izuku shouted into the empty hallway, only to be greeted with silence. Guess Mom's not home. Izuku's stomach growled in hunger. Izuku doesn't eat his lunch, because he's mostly pulled away even before he could open his homemade meal he cooked himself, only to be used as a punching bag and a testing dummy for his classmates' quirks. He went to the kitchen and made himself some toasted bread and milk. I should go to bed before they come home. I don't want to see their faces full of disappointment whenever they see me. Izuku headed upstairs to his bedroom and drowned himself in his pillow, waiting for sleep to come and take his mind of the pain in this world. As Izuku drifted off to sleep, his family came home, tired from their secret work. Izu, you home? Inko shouted. Toshinori, yes he is honey, look, his shoes are on the front porch. Izuki, I should go check on him. Izuki ran up the stairs 2 at a time, and stopped just outside of Izuku's room. She slowly opened the door and saw Izuku thrashing in his bed asleep, his sheets wet with sweat. Izu! Izuki screamed. She shook Izuku, forcing him to wake up from his dream. Izuku woke up to see his sister, his previous tormentor, was standing beside him looking at him. Izuku shuffled away from his sister, afraid that she would beat him up again. What? Do what you want? Izuki, Izu, you were thrashing around in your bed, were you having a nightmare? I was worried about you. Izuku, why ya? And whose fault is that? Izuku said, shaking in fear. Izuki looked at Izuku in shame. Get out dash. Please. Inko was making dinner while Toshinori was watching the television. What was that noise, sweetie? Inko asked Izuki. Izuki, nothing mom. Suddenly the phone rang and Toshinori picked it up. Toshinori, hello? Midorya's residence. Silence. Toshinori, what? Toshinori shouted in shock, making Inko and Izuki jump. What is it, honey? Inko asked when Toshinori put the phone down. I'm going to UA for a while. No, Izuki, Toshinori said as Izuki grabbed her coat ready to go with her dad. What? But dad. If it's urgent I must go too. Izuki exclaimed. But what's happening, Yugi? They said that someone stole files containing me and the children's quirks. Izuki got mad and said in a serious tone. Who the hell is stupid enough to steal from UA? Tell me, Dad. But they say that it's Izuku. Inko dropped whatever she was holding. I dunno, a spatula or something? Izuku. A year ago, before the sludge villain incident, Izuku was pushed against the school building's wall as his bullies, namely Izuki, Shoto, Kaken and the rest of their lackeys, were laughing and thinking out loud on what they should do with him. Kaken, didn't I tell you to stop dreaming, Deku? What the hell was that, huh? Izuku, wait, Kaken, I dash. Izumi, shut it, twerp. You should stop embarrassing yourself, you quirkless slug. Shoto, don't make your life any more harder that this Izuku. Everyone else, yeah? Don't cry, Izuku. Don't show any signs of weakness, they'll only bully you further. I don't care, it's my dream. You and I promised each other catch, but Izuku never got to finish his sentence, because all the air was knocked out of him as an explosion-propelled fist collided with Izuku's stomach. Kaken, shut the F up, Deku. That promise was for if you have a quirk. Shoto, Imagine our disappointment when we heard you without a quirk. No. I can be a hero. I can help. Izuku shouted. Another fist collided in Izuku's stomach. But it didn't end there. More pain was needed, so the rest of their lackeys used their quirks on Izuku, giving him more scars and bruises to bandage. Izuki, you're such a disappointment in our family, Izuku. I am ashamed to have you sully our family name by going down in history as the first quirkless kid trying out the UA course. Izuki landed a kick in Izuku's face, making his forehead bleed. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Kaken, hey Deku, do you still want to become a hero? Izuku looked up on his bully's face. Yes. Kaken, then take a swan dive of the roof and hope that in your next life, God will give you a quirk. Shoto and Izumi looked at Kaken's shocked faces. Izuku froze. Izuki, Bakugo, I think that's going too far. Kaken, why the hell do you care? Shoto, I think so too. Bakugo, you shall wait. Deku. Izuku ran away from them. He dashed out of school and hid under an old bridge. Why would they say that? Why wouldn't they? Voice inside Izuku's head spoke. But Izuku knew that the voice was his inner self. They're wrong. I will become a hero. Listen to yourself, kid. Do you really think that's possible? A sludge was slowly getting closer to the absent-minded Izuku. You're lying. I just have to believe. That's the spirit. Hey kid, mind if I borrow your body for a while? Someone spoke behind Izuku. Wah. A liquid-like substance was suddenly trying to force itself inside Izuku's mouth. Blah blah blah, we all know what happens. I'm too lazy. In comes All Might. All Might blew the sludge villain away and kept it inside a water bottle to contain it. Are you alright, young man? All Might said, looking at Izuku for the first time. Shit, it's Izuku? All Might. Him, that's right. Now that I've given you a signature, I must now leave. Izuku, wait. Sir All Might, please, I have a question. Shit. Okay, young man, shoot. Izuku, do you think that a quirkless like me would become a hero someday? Izuku looked at All Might, hopeful. All Might closed his eyes. Sorry, Izuku. But I can't loose you. A quirkless can never become a hero. You can never defeat a villain without a quirk, young man. I'm sorry. You should just become a police. All Might cut his sentence short because of the look on Izuku's face. He looked broken. Izuku took All Might's words for heard and just gave up. Yeah. Those were the good times. Well, time to get ready for school, Izuku said, and he got up and wore his uniform. Another day. Another pain. Izuku got dressed and didn't even bother to prepare his own lunch. Why would he? He wouldn't even get to eat. Izuku noticed that no one was home. Did they leave so that they can't see me? Am I that much of a disappointment? Pricks, Izuku thought. Izuku walked out of his house and locked the door. If mom left her key, then it's her fault. Izuku walked to his school, using a shortcut that he often uses, deep in an alleyway. Not much people come here, it's dark and sketchy, but hey. At least I'm alone. Shuffling. Izuku heard a noise from above. Izuku saw no one, probably just a cat. Izuku almost reached the end of the alleyway, but he was suddenly kissing the pavement as someone pinned his arm behind his back. Oh, the hell! Izuku exclaimed. That hurts a hole? Who the F are you? A mugger? If so, I have no Shut it, thief. Thief? The hell? Isn't he the thief here? Izuku Midorya? A small voice said. But the voice sounded like it had more authority. You are hereby under arrest for stealing the files containing Class 1A and 1B quirks. Wait, Nezu. We don't even know if the boy really did it. There must be some explanation. Nezu, you saw the footage, All Might. This child is a villain. All Might, and no, he's not. I know he isn't. Izuku heard more shuffling and grunting, like people are trying to stop All Might from grabbing Nezu. What files? A villain? You must be joking. And why is All Might protecting me? He doesn't even know me? I see. Izuki rushes into the alley, passing the other heroes and pushed the hero, on top of Izuku, away. She then grabbed Izuku's arm, pulling him away from Kamui Woods, who was getting up. Izuki, run, Izuku. Izuku was trying to process everything that was happening, but he didn't have time. He was quickly pinned to the ground once more by none other than Katsuki. Shoto tried to hold Izuku down. "Oh, catcha? Shut up, villain." Bakugo then made a blast so close to Izuku's face, making Izuku freeze. "Nezu, can you take him to the jet?" Kamui Woods, "Yes sir. And you please? He's innocent, the first tell you." Nezu ignored All Might. "Nezu, face the facts, All Might. Not all people you care about are good." Nezu walked towards Izuku, "And you, I'll make sure to make you taste hell itself." Izuku couldn't speak. He was too shocked about all this. Izuku was silent the whole ride. Afraid of this white rat or bear or whatever. He may be small but he has authority. Why did All Might plead for me? "Woods, why did you do it?" Izuku looked up at Kamui Woods. "What? Woods, why did you steal the files?" Izuku, "I didn't." Nezu, "Lies, listen kid." Nezu leaned over to Izuku. "You may be quirkless but that doesn't mean you have to be a villain. Now I'm forced to do this." "No. I'm telling you. It wasn't me." Izuku pleaded. But Nezu ignored him. "Woods, no point in lying kid. We say you threw the cams. Plus even if you say you didn't do it, then who did? The villains sure as hell don't know you exist." "Villains? Why would the villains even think about me? I'm a nobody." Woods and Nezu was silent. They didn't even look at him. "Hey, why would the villains even think about me?" "No one imp." Nezu, "Yes you are. Or you were." Izuku, W. "Woods, your father is All Might." Silence. "And no. That's not true." Nezu, "Kid, do me a favor and shut up. I'm tired from all this fiasco." Woods, "Imagine the shame it would have brought All Might and your sister. Good thing though, no one knows you're related to them. And it sticks that way." Izuku cried silently, tears dripping down his cheeks. He's been living a lie his whole life. All he does is smile and endure the pains coming though him, like a steel pipe pumping boiling hot water though its innards. But why. Told you, you should have just gave up. They arrived at Tartarus, a fortress in an island built for criminal masterminds, and the worst of the worst. They torture their inmates day in, day out. Not even giving them the chance to rest because after the whips and whacks, they must get to work. Nezu, "Warden, take this one and make sure to give him extras." The warden was a heavily built man, on which to Izuku looked like he had a strengthening quirk. "Warden? A kid? What the hell did he do?" Woods, "He stole your files." Nezu, "Files that contain the children's quirks and weaknesses. He sold it to the League of Villains." Warden, "Oh. Well, you must be a piece of shit, huh kid? What's your quirk?" "Invisibility." Izuku, I'm quirkless." The warden looked at Izuku in disbelief and looked from Woods to Nezu, who in turn nodded. The warden laughed. "Well, this is going to be fun." Bruised and wounded, Izuku was sitting on the corner of his dark windowless cell at the very tippy top of Tartarus. A loud knock issued that it's time for Izuku's day's punishment. Izuku was scared shitless. For 12 weeks he's been tortured and used as the inmate's personal punching bag and errand boy. They were the worst. The guards were no good either. They use every single idea they could come up with for Izuku. Rats, boiling water, acid, whips, etc. Every damn day Izuku cries himself to sleep. What's worst was no one even bothered to visit him. What was I even expecting from my own family anyway? "Get away from the door and face the wall with your hands behind your head," the warden said. The warden decided from the first week that he would be the one to personally look out for Izuku. The door opened with a creak because from all the rust that accumulated for years, no one even bothered to clean this part of the prison. "You ready to have fun, brat?" The warden laughed at his little joke. "Jesus, it sounds like they've been raping Izuku, but I'm not that much of an a-hole, guys." Izuku looked at the warden with blank eyes. "Kid's broken. I'm surprised he lasted this long." The warden took Izuku into an unsanitary room. In the center was boiling hot tar. It was hot enough for it to burn through anyone's skin. But of course they were not gonna let this kid die that easily. One of the guards had a healing quirk. All they had to do was plunge Izuku's hand into the tar for 3 seconds, then the guard would use his healing quirk on Izuku. A simple process really. Izuku saw the tar and tried to run away, crying once more, pleading for help from the guards. But of course they ignored him. Wait please. I told you I'm innocent. Izuku screamed out in agony as the warden immediately plunged his hand into the boiling tar. Izuku cried and wailed, his eyes blood red, and his tears are no longer flowing. From all the crying this past 12 weeks, his tears just vanished. All Izuku was is a husk filled with despair. This went on for several hours, and it ended with Izuku rasping for air as he had a panic attack. Take the kid back to his cell, and make sure he gets back up his feet in an hour. He still has work to do. The warden shouted, after the guards dragged the poor Izuku back into his cell. Izuku kept on wheezing for air as his panic attacks got worse. The guards paid no attention to his wheezing, thinking that the kid was just overreacting. They threw Izuku in his cell, still wheezing, coughing and sweating. Help! Izuku crawled toward his door. Help! Izuku pathetically whispered, out of breath. Then he fainted. Izuku drew his last breath in his cell, with no one caring for him, or even sparing him a second thought. My poor boy, you have fought yet you failed miserably. Time to wake up, young Izuku. Izuku woke up, not in his cell, but in a place in vivid orange and red. Fire surrounded Izuku, but it merely licked him. It doesn't even feel hot. Good day, young man, welcome to hell. Hell. Izuku looked around and saw an elderly man wearing a tux. He looked old, yet Izuku felt power radiating from him. Who are you? Oh, I'm Satan, or Lucifer as you may call it. Izuku was surprised not because he was in hell, but because of how calm he was. Izuku, why am I in hell? Did I do something bad? Lucifer, no my dear boy. I only brought your soul to hell because me and God has a proposition for you Midorya. Izuku, proposition? God? But aren't you supposed to hate each other? Lucifer laughed at Izuku's statement. Lucifer, my dear boy, those stories concerning me and God's battle ended centuries ago. I have been pardoned, but he told me to stay in hell, to punish the sinners. Izuku kept silent, so Lucifer continued. You see, young man, when a sinner dies, God gives them to me, to be punished. I only release them when they repent. And where do they go? Lucifer, well, they go back to Earth, of course. They will be reincarnated as a new man or woman. The cycle repeats itself every time you see. Izuku, okay, but why bring me here? I assume you didn't just bring me here to tell me your story. Lucifer laughed and held Izuku's shoulder. Let's take a walk, young man. Izuku complied, but hesitantly. Izuku still doesn't know what to make of this man. If he's Satan, then Izuku should be wary. Lucifer, the proposition me and God has for you, young Midorya, is make you my rider. Izuku, rider? What's that? Lucifer, a rider is someone who takes the souls of the sinners in the mortal realm. A rider is someone who brings pain and fear to those who use brutal force against the innocent. A rider is basically my hound. Lucifer stopped walking and looked at Midorya in the eyes. Lucifer, a rider is a hero, young Izuku, a hero who destroys the evil and corrupt. Would you become my rider, Izuku? Would you become my rider? Lucifer said these words while looking at Izuku's eyes. He may be the devil, but Izuku remembered something from the Bible. Even though Satan is called evil incarnate, he never tells a lie, only loopholes. What's the consequences if I accept being your rider, Sir Morningstar? None. You are free to do anything you want, you're free, young man. Izuku was confused at this point. Not only did the devil offer him power, the devil offered him freedoms without consequences. But isn't there any loopholes or punishments? Lucifer, nope, well, yes actually, thanks for reminding me. Izuku swallowed. He prepared himself for the things that Lucifer might say. Lucifer, you would only be able to kill those who have sinned greatly and cause immense pain to those who have sinned the lesser sin. Lucifer looked up at Izuku, only to see him with a wide-eyed face, shocked. Lucifer laughed at Izuku. Lucifer, my boy, you really are quite amusing. Now do you accept? Lucifer held his hand out for Izuku to take. Izuku breathed in and out, then grabbed the hand, sealing the deal. Lucifer, wonderful, now let me explain your power, young one. The flames of hell, they burn those who have sinned, and can purify those who truly feel that they have wronged, therefore making this flame on with redemption. Cursed flames, the green cursed flames will only activate once you're near someone who have earned their place in the deepest parts of hell. It won't hurt those who can still change, but this flame will cause immense pain before killing the said perpetrator. Penance stare, with this you can take the soul and power of anyone you like, killing them in the process after causing them immense pain. Summon this lastly is the skill that summons a ride that suits you, either let it be a horse, a car, or a motorcycle. I suggest motorcycle young Izuku. And this are all of it. Are you satisfied? Lucifer finished. While Izuku looked dumbstruck, he got all those power fitting for a hero. He could summon flames that will only hurt the villains. Lucifer, not exactly young Midorya, everyone sinned, so you will cause them pain if you neglect using your power. Izuku, you can read my mind? Lucifer, always have been. Izuku went red with embarrassment. Lucifer heard all of those horrible things he said, but acted like he didn't even know. Lucifer, a bit of warning my boy, the process of turning into a rider is painful. Flames will engulf your body, burning you down to the bone literally. Izuku, yes sir, but can I have a weapon, Sir Lucifer? Lucifer thought for a while, then he whistled. The ground shook as loud bangs and thumps Hugo's louder and closer to them. Lucifer, well young Izuku, the weapon I chose for you would be the chains of hell, but I decided to give you something special. A giant dog with 3 heads appeared behind Lucifer, looking as menacing as a T-Rex looking at its prey. Stand down Cerberus, he's not your prey. Lucifer grabbed the chains around the dog's collar. It looks rusty and old, weak looking really. Lucifer, this chain is special, this holds thousands of souls that has sinned, it's perfect for the first rider in this universe. Izuku, universe? But Lucifer was already wrapping the chains around Izuku's left arm, imprinting itself like a tattoo. He did the same for his right arm too. Lucifer, when you transform, these chains will come out and act like your third and fourth arms. Izuku, but how do I activate your power? Lucifer, your power Izuku, and to activate it you just have to will it. You try. Lucifer backed away from Izuku. Izuku closed his eyes and willed himself to become a rider. Rider, become a rider, and save the innocent while I burn the sinners. As you wish. Izuku suddenly fell on all fours as he felt his body burning from the inside. The temperature was increasing. Izuku saw his skin turn red and his vision got blurry. Ah, Izuku screamed. He screamed like there was no tomorrow. Izuku burst into flame as his chains wrap around him. Lucifer, oh boy, looks like this boy has something stuck in his mind, he's losing control. The newly made rider stood up and used his emerald green flames to cover himself. No, itself, and it disappeared. Lucifer looked up and sighed. I hope that boy can control his emotions, Lord. Back in the mortal realm, the students of Class 1A were chattering and making jokes with their friends as they enter USJ, ready for a day of training. But of course we all know what happens. Kurogiri was about to separate the children, as Shigaraki was screaming about killing All Might. Shigaraki, where's All Might? Aizawa, he's not here, villain. Shigaraki, well I guess I'm going to have to kill a couple of children to get his attention, eh? Shigaraki laughed. And Shigaraki shouted, as a bird-headed muscular humanoid entity emerged from the portal. Kill them, Shigaraki ordered. Nomu rushes at Asval at an unbelievable speed, punching him in the face, sending him crashing into the stairs, but Nomu didn't end there. Nomu relentlessly rushed at Aizawa, beating him and throwing him like a sock puppet. 13 tried to help but was confronted by Kurogiri. 13 tried to fight Kurogiri with her quirk, but of course, her quirk backfired on herself, ripping her suit from behind and immobilizing her. The students were afraid. Lita was gone, trying to get to UA as fast as he can to alert the teachers and heroes. Bakugo was held back by Momo, preventing him from killing himself by trying to help Aizawa. What should we do? We can't leave the others, Izuki said as she saw Mineta and Tsuyu getting cornered by villains in the boat area. Forgot the name. Aizawa was at wit's end. All Might appeared, but his time was almost up. He can't fight with Pew exposing himself. He just watched Aizawa getting beaten to a pulp. Nomu was about to land the killing punch, when the ground between Nomu and Aizawa burst into emerald green flames. And a man, no, a skeleton wearing a black trench coat with spikes sprouting from the coat's shoulders and his gloves. Chains wrapped around the skeleton while it emitted a deep laugh. The flames dispersed and the skeleton looked at Nomu and pointed. Abomination? You, abomination? Everyone went silent, this thing that appeared between the Nomu. And Aizawa didn't look particularly human. What the hell? Shigaraki said, in a fearful tone. Surely, this thing is not an ally. The newly born rider then started to walk towards the Nomu, melting the ground on his wake. Shigaraki, sensing danger, said, Nomu, kill the thing. Nomu lunged at the rider, trying to grab its head for a quick death, but failed. The rider dodged at astonishing speeds and punched the Nomu in the guts, sending it flying in the opposite direction. Shigaraki, what? The rider looked at Shigaraki and said, Man-child, you are next. Shigaraki shivered as the rider walked slowly towards Shigaraki. Kurogiri, seeing Shigaraki frozen with fear, quickly made a warp gate in front of the rider, but he merely phased through, as if the gate wasn't even there. Once a rider picks a target, it never lets it escape, for as long as his flame burns. Kurogiri, Nomu, protect Shigaraki. A loud bang ensued from the other side of USJ, and the rider was sent flying. You will burn for that, the rider said, getting up from the rubble. The Nomu pounced and once more tried to grab the rider, and again it failed. The rider moved at incredible speeds, moving his chains to wrap around Nomu. Nomu tried to move but was immobilized by the chains. It was unbreakable. The more Nomu tried to move, the tighter it gets, until finally Nomu fell to the ground, unable to move his arms and legs. In turn, the chains burned Nomu, but it did so little because of its regenerative ability. I was right. You are an abomination, you have no soul, you are lucky, you will not burn in hell, but you will burn in this realm. The rider touched the Nomu's head, burning it until it was no more, not even an ash was left. Both the villains and the students and teachers shook with fear. That thing just easily killed a Nomu, even All Might was almost killed. Shigaraki, oh, you cheater. You cheated. The rider looked at Shigaraki. Shigaraki, shit. Kurogiri, get us out of here. The rider was walking towards Shigaraki and he was running towards Kurogiri, scared out of his wits. Shigaraki, I'll get you next time, skeleton. And with that, him and the rest of the league disappeared. So Rider looked for other sinners in close proximity, and there was All Might. He was the closest sinner, and the next ones are the children. Sinners, they're all sinners. All Might tried to get up, but he can't move without exposing his weakest form. The rider was very near All Might when it stopped. The flames turned blue, and it started to move ever so slowly. Almost cautiously. It reached out its hands as his flames turned blue mixed with a hint of green. It was almost lovingly trying to reach out to All Might, but it was stopped with a bullet going through his hand. The rider snapped out of it, and the red flames burned once more, but only this time, it burned more ravagely. Everyone looked at the entrance and saw Lita with the reinforcements wide-eyed at the burning skeleton in front of them. Sniped started to shoot rapidly. Each bullet went through the rider arms and legs. If it was human, then it would already be immobilized. But this is the Devil's Hound we're talking about. Snipe stopped shooting when he heard a loud rev of a motorcycle right outside the entrance. He and the heroes turned around too late and got hit by a flaming motorcycle speeding toward the rider. The rider wrapped its chains around his arm and got on the motorcycle laughing, "See you next time, sinners." And with that he does off through the Colosseum wall, leaving a trail of fire. It left everyone frozen on the spot. What the hell did they just witness? The streets of Muzudafu, Japan, was in chaos. The civilians said to the heroes that a vigilante with a fire quirk much like Endeavor was killing villains, down from petty thieves to murderers. The streets burst into flames as a burning man on a speeding motorcycle drove around the city, stopping only to kill. According to eyewitnesses, the individual appears to be covered in flames, much like Endeavor, but be warned, 45 people has died from this person and their ways of death is still unexplainable. We think that the said individual has two quirks, and that is the flame quirk and the other is a quirk that kills you instantly. We don't know how, but citizens, stay on your guard. The policeman said to the reporters, but of course, the reporters wanted more information. Sir, rumor says that the burning vigilante appeared first in the USJ incident, one reporter said. And with that, all of the reporters repeated the question to the poor policeman while he tried to get away. Meanwhile in Nezu turned the television off and turned to his staff and the heroes. Nezu, can someone please explain to me what the hell happened at USJ? Aizawa. A bunch of individuals calling themselves the League of Villains appeared at USJ claiming that they have something that could kill All Might. Nezu, and did they? All Might, yes, they did. I was watching, I couldn't do anything, but I know that thing had enough power to beat me, but not kill me. Nezu breathed loudly and looked up at the ceiling. Everyone was silent for a couple minutes, so Nezu spoke again. What about the skeleton? Everyone tensed, they were still afraid of what they saw. Does the skeleton have enough power to kill you, All Might? All Might nodded once agreement. He was the #1 hero, but if he were to fight the Nomu head-on he would be full of bruises. Yes, they thing killed it easily. Nezu, someone call Endeavor, he might be able to take him on, fire to fire. Izuku the newly born rider was speeding across the city, burning the roads, when he passed by an old man who looked familiar, but he didn't stop. The sinners must be purged. No, young Izuku, calm yourself, don't let your emotions take control of you, let your hatred disappear and let the flames cool. Izuku slowed down, and his flames slowly dwindled. Go into the mountains quickly. Izuku did as he was told and drove toward the mountain. Izuku's motorcycle immediately disappeared and Izuku fell into the ground clutching his face. He felt his skin regrow and stick into his hot bones. This went on for 3 minutes until finally it stopped. Izuku looked up and saw Lucifer smiling at Izuku. Congratulations my boy, you got a quirk, or quirks more like. Lucifer laughed, he held his hand out for Izuku, and Izuku took it and stood up. Izuku, yeah, but I think this rider thing doesn't really count as a quirk. Lucifer, no my boy, that's not what I meant. Remember the penance stare? Izuku, penance stare? I don't remember using it. Izuku suddenly remembered the USJ fiasco and him killing 45 people. Izuku held his stomach and puked. I killed people. I'm a murderer. Izuku started to hyperventilate, but Lucifer merely snapped his fingers and said, no, young Izuku, you're not a murderer, they're not dead. Well, physically that is. You see, young man, the body can live without the soul. Izuku looked up confused. Lucifer, the penance stare only works on sinners because when you stare into their eyes their sins will be exposed for the lesser demons to see, and they will drag his soul to hell. Although the police's statement says that you killed them, because technically they are, but not at the same time. Izuku calmed himself, trying to convince himself that he wasn't a murderer. But what do you mean quirks? Izuku asked Lucifer. Lucifer smiled at Izuku, exited to tell him the news. The penance stare gives you a chance to take the quirks of the people you use them on, only I made a few adjustments and made it to only take quirks that strengthens your physical and mental body of both rider and user. Really? Izuku said wide-eyed, what are they? Lucifer, well, seeing that you took the souls of 45 people and only about 13 of them had quirks that are actually useful, here they are. Strength Enhancer. Low-class regeneration x2 equals middle-class regeneration. Fire Manipulation, merged with the Cursed Flames equals the Eternal Flames. Invisibility, duration 20 seconds, x2, duration changed to 60. Dominator's Touch x5, get the reference. Scream, user emits a high-pitched sound, loud enough to knock someone unconscious. Command. And that's it. Lucifer finished while Izuku was dumbstruck. A quirk, I finally got a quirk. Izuku was about to shout at the top of his lungs, when Lucifer grabbed his mouth and made a shushung gesture. Someone's here, young Izuku, Lucifer whispered. Transform quickly. But I might lose control, Izuku whispered back. You have the quirk Calm Mind, Izuku. You won't lose control unless you get seriously angry. Trust me, Lucifer said before disappearing into the shadows of the trees. Izuku willed himself to be the Ghost Rider once more, and surprisingly there wasn't any pain, he just transformed instantly. Izuku sensed a sinner near the vicinity. It was near him, 10 clicks north. Izuku walked toward the sinner, seeing a bright light in the distance. When Izuku got into the clearing he was suddenly covered in flames that was foreign for him. Your killings end here, villain. A man covered in flame spoke. Author note, holy shite, are they brothers? I should edit it in, but nah, I'm too lazy. I did not kill anyone in Endeavor, I merely took their souls to hell. They were sinners, and so are you. Thanks for reading plus almost 300 reads, wow. Thanks guys. The Flames of Hell versus Endeavor. Endeavor looked pissed. This skeleton just called him a sinner. A sinner? He was the number 2 hero, how could he be a sinner? Endeavor, what the hell are you? Izuku, Ima call him rider. I am a rider, a ghost rider, I am Satan's personal hound and God's messenger. I am the spirit of vengeance. Endeavor lunged at the rider. This fool just called himself Satan's hound. Flash fire fist. Endeavor attacked Izuku. But the thing is, the flames coming from Endeavor gave Izuku more power. Izuku stood his ground and laughed. Oh, how cute, is that the best you can do, hero? Izuku laughed and summoned his chains, but this time, Izuku wanted the fight to last longer. Flash fire fist. Jet burn. Endeavor shot a beam towards Izuku, so Izuku spun his chains to disperse the flame. How weak, just like your pride. Izuku lassoed Endeavor using his chains and threw him outside the mountain and into the city. Izuku summoned his motorcycle and rode down the mountain, into the city. People were screaming and news vans were driving as fast as they can, to catch the footage of Endeavor fighting the vigilante. How they knew I don't know, and heck, I'm the author. Endeavor got up, his suit is torn because of the landing. Endeavor readied himself because a loud motorcycle could be heard, getting closer to where he was. Found you, Izuku arrived. People screamed at the sight of him. A burning skeleton, it was bizarre. You people might want to evacuate, you don't want to join the crossfire, don't you? Izuku laughed at the sight of people scrambling to run away, sinners running from hell. Endeavor, how noble of you, villain. Rider, villain? How rude. I'm a hero. Endeavor, ha, a hero? You must be a joke. Rider, oh, but I'm serious, you see. I bring order and peace. Because I destroy those who sin, no one can hide from me. Unlike you, you call yourself a hero, but tell me, does your family see you as a hero? Endeavor? Izuku laughed out loud. He knew that they were being watched by the whole of Japan. Endeavor got nervous. Endeavor, yes. My family does see me as a hero. Rider, oh really now? I must be mistaken then, so it wasn't you who sent your wife into the mental hospital by force. So it wasn't you who gave you children hell because they did not meet your expectations? It wasn't you who made the perfect breed to become the number 1 hero? Let's ask Shoto Todoroki, shall we? Endeavor, you will not bring my children any harm. Prominence burn. Endeavor destroyed everything in front of him within a 3-mile radius. Everything was caught on camera. Endeavor destroyed half the city. Surely the villain didn't survive that. Meanwhile at UA, Izumi, Shoto, and Bakugo, were in the living room of their dorm talking about the USJ incident. Izumi, do you think that thing is a good guy? Shoto, no, didn't you see the news? It killed 45 people in one day, that sounds like a villain to me. Bakugo, who cares? We're okay, aren't we? Plus I think that guy was cool, it saved us and made a badass entrance. Yeah, but it's still scary. Mina entered the room along with the rest of 1A. Yayazuro, agreed, plus it was approaching All Might, who knows what might have happened? Kirishima, yeah, but didn't you notice that the skeleton guy was walking toward All Might slowly? Izumi, yeah, it really looked like the skeleton dude wanted to get near All Might like a family or a friend or something. They kept on debating whether the rider's good or not, while Bakugo, annoyed of all this talk, decided to turn the television on. Oh, but I'm serious, you see. I bring order and peace, because I destroy those who sin, no one can hide from me. Unlike you, you call yourself a hero, but tell me, does your family see you as a hero? Endeavor? Everyone stopped their debate and looked at the television. There he was, the skeleton, talking with Endeavor. And it looks like they are fighting. Shoto kept staring at the screen, until the writer said Shoto's name. They all looked at Shoto, but Shoto was stuck facing the screen. Does that mean that the skeleton would be coming for him next? Shoto tore his eyes away from the television, only to meet screams. What? Bakugo ran towards Shoto to grab him, but Shoto felt a tug behind his shirt, then he was gone. Back at the fight. No. You will not bring my children any harm. Prominence burn. Endeavor thought he did it, he killed the bastard. Rider, haha, that was quite the fire show, right Shoto? The smoke cleared and Endeavor's world fell. There he was, this so-called rider, unharmed, holding his son Shoto Todoroki by the neck. How? What the hell? Degree. Indeed. Izuku faced the camera, which made the reporters shit themselves, and said, "Come on now Shoto, tell the whole of Japan what kind of a sinner your father really is." Izuku willed the chains to wrap around Shoto and Endeavor stood there, thinking how he got his son. I tried my best. Todoroki struggled to break free but Izuku ignored him, he can't break free anyway. Rider, now Endeavor, tell everyone your sins, or would you want your son to do it for you instead? Now you wouldn't like that, would you? Endeavor didn't know what to do. If he attacks his son would get hurt and ruin his reputation. Endeavor's son appeared seemingly out of thin air. We are now wondering what Endeavor would do, the reporter said, to the viewers. All of Japan is holding their breath. This skeleton is playing with the number 2 hero. What will happen to the others if they were to try and stop him? Rider, well? Speak. Endeavor, I don't know what you're talking about. Rider, you don't know? Ha. Well then take a seat Endeavor, well let your son talk for you. Endeavor, Izuku used the Dominator's touch quirk on Endeavor to make fall down on his knees. Stay silent old man. Now. Shoto if you please, but Shoto stayed silent. Shoto, I will get angry you know, and I know that you hate your father, so this is your punishment too. Now. Izuku said the last sentence, looking into Shoto's eyes. Speak from the heart. Izuku backed away from Shoto. Endeavor, now son run. But Shoto stayed immobile. Shoto? Endeavor screamed again, but Shoto just looked at him with blank eyes. Reporter, the son of Endeavor is just standing there, and Endeavor is kneeling on the ground? Who is this villain? And what does he want? Izuku, look at the cameras Shoto. Nezu, All Might, Aizawa and the other heroes looked at the television hoping for good news, but for the past 30 minutes, all they see is Endeavor losing and his son held captive. Nezu, shit, everyone aid Endeavor. Aizawa, what can we do? He played with Endeavor and he killed a Nomu that can rival All Might with ease. Nezu, yes, but we must try. All Might, I'll go on ahead, you guys try to catch up? Nezu, careful, he's dangerous. Back at the fight. Shoto, Endeavor, my father. Didn't love my mother, her family sold her to him. He married her only to make someone who can wield 2 quirks. At first when my siblings were born, he neglected them, seeing them as a failed product. Until finally I was born, ever since I could use my quirk at the age of 4, my father has trained me to be number 1. My mother hated it, she told him to stop, but of course, father didn't care. Mother lost control one day and splashed water on my left face. My father sighed. She apologized to me, but my father paid money and forced her to be put in the mental hospital. My brother Tuya Todoroki left home. We don't know what happened to him, he might be dead for all he cares, but known all he wants is to surpass All Might. Shoto finished, and everyone went silent. Both the heroes and villains couldn't believe their ears, except 2, a villain named Dabi. He knew what kind of scum Endeavor really is. And the other one is Izuku. He smiled at the confession. He bent over, close to Endeavor's ear and whispered, "Congratulations, you have been repented." Endeavor thrashed wildly, "Come back here you piece of..." Final flash. Hell's spider. Prominence burn. Nothing came out. His quirk was nullified by Izuku. One of the benefits of penance stare. Your soul becomes unstable, making you quirkless. Now. Shoto, it's your turn. Izuku snapped his fingers and Shoto was back from the trance. Shoto, what did you do to me? Rider, I brought out your desire to see your father fall. But enough about him, it's your turn. Remember Izuku Midorya? Shoto and back at Ue Izumi and Big Bakugo, gasped. Shoto, what about him? Rider, oh, you'll know soon, but first I have to go now. I smell scum in the air. Get away from Todoroki, All Might screamed, dropping from the sky, cracking the ground. You will not hurt this boy, villain. Rider, hurt? Villain? That very rude coming from you, Toshinori. All Might, how do you know me? Rider, Izuku told me, just last night in the afterlife. All Might moved extremely fast and actually grabbed Izuku by the collar. What do you mean? All Might screamed out loud, his body shaking with anger. This thing just said his little boy Izuku was in the afterlife. Rider, he's dead, Toshinori. He died alone yesterday. He died because of the torture and pain he endured for many years. All Might, you lie. Rider, if I ain't? All Might, if you're not lying, then I will kill the ones who tortured him myself. Rider just laughed. All Might, what's so funny? Rider, oh, nothing, because the guard didn't kill the boy, Toshinori. All Might, then who? Rider, what? It was you and your family, of course. With that, Izuku pushed All Might with such force that he was thrown into a building. Izuku got on his motorcycle and said out loud, "Go check Tartarus if you want to find out yourself." Then Izuku sped off into the distance, laughing out loud. Reporter, All Might has a son? How come we didn't know about that? Izumi, you have a brother? And what does he mean, Tartarus? Tsuyu asked Izumi. But Izumi had tears in her eyes. Her brother? That can't be. All Might? What happened? Where did he go? The heroes ask as they arrive on the battlefield, much too late. Endeavor didn't move, his quirk was back, but his reputation is ruined, and hearing his faults coming from his son made him realize what kind of a piece of shit father he really is. Nezu, All Might, are you okay? All Might didn't say anything, he just stood there shaking, his smile gone and the glint of his blue eyes disappeared. Nezu, well, it appears he escaped. You heroes search the area for casualties, and All Might, your time is almost up. Nezu went to grab All Might's shirt to get him out of his trance, but All Might grabbed Nezu instead and pulled him close. Where's my son Nezu? All Might said in a dangerous whisper, but the heroes heard and turned around to see All Might's usually smiling face contorted in anger. Nezu was scared. Let me go and I. All Might's, God damn it, Nezu, what did you do to my son? The heroes were scared of All Might, and so was the rest of Japan. It was all filmed and broadcasted live. I didn't do anything, Toshinori. I just gave him to the guard in Tartarus, Nezu replied. Tartarus? You didn't say anything about sending my son to Tartarus, Nezu. Nezu struggled, when finally All Might let go of Nezu. A huge gust of wind appeared as All Might jumped up into the sky and flew towards the direction of Tartarus. Nezu scrambled up and called the warden. Nezu, hello. Warden, where's Izuku? Warden, oh hey there, Nezu. Who's Izuku? Nezu, the kid. The kid that I sent to Tartarus. Where's the kid? Warden, oh, the kid died last night. The guard said the kid had a panic attack and couldn't breathe. Nezu dropped the phone. What has he done? Nezu dropped to his knees and started to sweat profusely. Aizawa, Nezu, what's wrong? Nezu, the kid? Aizawa, so it's true then, the kid's dead? The reporters went crazy. They just witnessed 3 surprising events. One is the skeleton naming himself the Ghost Rider defeated the number 2 hero easily. 2 is when his son Shoto told everyone his sins. And now the number 1 hero, the one who smiles even in the face of a villain, became distressed. Bakugo has his hand up his face, covering it from the rest of the class. Izumi, on the other hand, was crying non-stop. Izumi, let her beat Kirishima, stopped Lita. They wanted answers, but now's not the time. We can ask next time. All Might arrived in the island where Tartarus was built. He fell with a crash. The guard, thinking it was a villain, readied their weapons. All Might, where's my son? Guards, All Might? Oh my god. Can I have your autograph? Effin' idiot. All Might glared at the guard. The guard almost shit himself. I'll ask again, where's my son? I don't know what you're talking about. I'll call the warden, he knows everyone, the guard said in a frightened voice. He ran off into Tartarus, while All Might waited. His smile turned into a grimace. Warden, All Might said when the warden got out. Warden, All Might, what brings you here? All Might, you know why I'm here. Warden, the boy, All Might didn't move or even flinch. He just asked, "Where's the body? I'm going to bury him properly." The warden pointed towards the backside of Tartarus, where they usually bury the dead inmates. "Warden, just so you know, when you and your men are in trouble, I won't help you," All Might said, leaving the warden. He saw Izuku's body, covered in cloth near a newly dug grave. All Might picked up Izuku's body and hugged him. "My boy. I'm sorry. I'm a bad father. I never should have left you, neglected you. I only wanted to protect you." All Might cried. He only stopped when Nezu arrived on plane. "Let's go, Toshinori," Nezu said. "I'll continue to work in UA, but not for you, for my daughter." Nezu nodded and led All Might into the jet. "How I had hoped to see you smile again." The crime rate decreased exponentially by 90% in Japan for the past 3 days. Criminals and villains are scared of this Ghost Rider and are not taking their chances, exposing themselves out in the open like that, but either way, everything was normal. It was a sunny day, yesterday, as Izuku watched from afar, as his family buried his mortal shell 6 feet under. His father All Might didn't even bother to disguise himself. Surprisingly, there were no reporters or even paparazzi located in the vicinity. The only people who attended his funeral were his mother, father, sister, Baku Beach, Shoto, and the rest of Class 1A. Izumi was crying her eyes out, and so was his mother. All Might was silent. He wasn't crying. But Izuku knew that All Might's world fell. Izuku was surprised to see his sister crying. It was sincere. Something Izuku didn't even know she could do. "You do care for me, huh, sis? If only you showed that to me years ago." Izuku walked away, into the shadows. "Settle down, I have an announcement to say." Aizawa entered the classroom. "As you know, All Might is, going through something, so he won't be joining us in our training camp." Class 1A just shrugged. They knew what was wrong. They were there in the funeral. Lida shot up, raising his hand. "But sir, who will be with us on our camping trip?" "I would, dumbass, and so will Vlad and the rest of 1B. We would also be joined by 4 other heroes." "Momo, may I ask who, sir?" "Aizawa, you'll know now. Get home and rest. You have a big day of training tomorrow." The Class 1A packed up their things and went home. Izumi, who was constantly accompanied by Shoto and Bakugo, decided to walk alone. Bakugo, she should just stop sulking. She hated Deku anyway. What's the big deal? Shoto, Bakugo. Enough. He's part of her family, and plus, she didn't hate him, she just did that to stop him coming to UA. Bakugo, family, what about you? What happened to Endeavor? Shoto, well, he kept on training for a day, but yesterday he surprised me and my family. He, changed? Bakugo, yeah right. 20 minutes later. Mom, I'm home. Izumi called out into the kitchen where her mother was. Oh, Izumi, welcome back. Inko smiled. Izumi noticed the bags under her eyes. She was crying again. Izumi, where's Dad? Inko, oh, he's upstairs, in your brother's room. Izumi went upstairs and saw Izuku's bedroom door, slightly ajar. Dad? Oh, Izumi. Welcome back, Toshinori smiled. He was in his weak form. It appears he was clearing up Izu's room. Dad. Why aren't you coming tomorrow? Inko asked her father, who continued to box up Izuku's things. Oh, if you want me to, I'll go, he replied. No, just take a rest, Dad. She hugged her father and went out. Time skip brought to you by Red Bull. Time skip contains them meeting the wild pussycats, and them being in hell, then the arrival of Class 1B, and blah blah blah. Villains ain't here yet, but they will be. A child was sitting alone on top of the mountain, Kota. He was just minding his own business, when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw a man wearing a black trench coat and green fluffy hair. Who are you? Kota asked the mysterious man. But the man just sat down beside Kota and gave him a store-bought lunch. The name's Izuku, kid, and you might want to eat. You don't want to starve, do you? Kota took the food, but he didn't eat it. Are you a hero too? He asked Izuku, staring at him with hatred. Izuku, do you really hate heroes that much? Kota, they do nothing but work that, they leave people behind to chase their heroic dreams. Izuku laughed. Do you really think your parents are like that? Kota stiffened. How did you know? Izuku grabbed Kota's hat and wore it. Well, they told me to tell you something. Kota tried to grab his hat from Izuku, but Izuku dodged. You lie. My parents are dead. Izuku, yes, you're correct. But that doesn't mean the dead cannot speak. Kota tried to punch Izuku, but Izuku just dodged and dodged. This went on for a couple minutes until Kota was finally exhausted. Ready to listen? My parents, Huff, are dead. They said they're sorry. Kota looked up at Izuku. They said they are sorry for leaving you alone. They thought of you even from the day they died. You were sparkle in the ocean surface. Even a small ripple would disturb that sparkle, so they decided to prevent any more ripples by sending this message. They were the biggest ripple that occurred in their ocean, so Kota, we promise you will all our heart. We never leave you. We will always be with you. We love you, son. Izuku finished. Kota was crying. Crying from the bottom of his heart. Thank you. Thank you, Mommy, Daddy, I love you. His tears fell into the cold surface of the mountain. The moon's light seemed to shine brighter. Izuku hugged Kota and walked away. Wait, mister. Will I see you again? Kota said in a hopeful voice. Just say my name, Kota, and I'll take the demons away. Izuku smiled and disappeared. Lucifer, he was the right person then. Gabriel, indeed, he will bring peace when the time of ruin comes. The next day, everyone noticed how Kota changed. He says he likes heroes now, because someone saved him last night. Mandalay asked Kota what he was talking about, but Kota would just shake his head and smile. Izumi and the others also noticed that Kota seemed to want to get closer to Izumi. Mandalay, thinking that it was a simple crush, pukes, told Kota how to catch a lady's attention. Kota, I don't have a crush on her. Mandalay, oh. Then why do you seem so close to her? Kota, she reminded me of my savior. Oh, and why is that, Kota? Izumi approached Kota. Kota, your green hair. This took Izumi by surprise. Green hair? No one else has green hair, except her brother. Izumi tried to ask Kota to describe his savior, but he was already walking away. Guess she'll ask later. Test of courage. The fifth pair from Class 1A, which is Achiko and Tsuyu, enter the forest. Inside the forest, Juzo and Itsuka praise Yui for her scaring tactic. Out of nowhere, smoke appears which causes Juzo to faint. Itsuka realizes that the smoke is dangerous and covers her mouth. Then she covers Yui with her quirk, telling Yui to not inhale the smoke as it is poisonous. Achiko and Tsuyu noticed the fire coming from the forest, but while their attention was focused on the fire, they didn't notice a blonde-haired kid sneaking up behind them. Suddenly, poisonous smoke covers the entire forest. The pussycats and the remainder of Class 1A see black smoke arising from the forest. Somewhere in the forest, Dabi commands the League of Villains Vanguard Action Squad to attack. Everyone, evacuate the forest and find the nearest teacher. There are villains attacking. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Mandalay's voice ringed in their heads. The students were terrified, especially Class 1B. Izuki was with Mandalay and Tiger. Pixie Bob is unconscious, her head being crushed by a gigantic piece of metal, covered in cloth, held by Kenji Hikishi, or Magna. Her quirk was magnetism. Mandalay, Izumi. Have you seen Kota anywhere? Izumi, no, but I think I know where he is. Mandalay, where? Izumi, on the mountain. I notice that he goes in that direction most of the times. I can find him, but I need your permission. Mandalay and Izumi dodged Spinner's attack. Permission granted. Now go. Mandalay shouted to Izumi. She didn't waste any more time and ran towards the mountain. Meanwhile, in the mountain, Kota is sitting, waiting for Izuku, hoping to see him again. He hears footsteps behind him. Kota turns around smiling, thinking it was Izuku. But his smile quickly faltered. Kota is confronted by a masked man. Kota didn't know what to do until he is communicated by Mandalay via telepathy, who asks him to return to the facility because villains are here, and apologizes for being unable to help him. Hey kid, nice hat, wanna trade? They made me wear this stupid mask, it doesn't even look good. The masked man said. However, Kota begins running away as the man takes off his mask. The man uses his quirk to jump in front of Kota. Kota sees the man's face and becomes shocked. Kota remembers watching the news about the villain who murdered his parents, the water horse. The villain has a simple augmenting strength quirk, and his most defining feature is the deep scar across his left eye left by the water horse duo. Kota realizes that the man in front of him is none other than the villain who murdered his parents. The scarred villain prepares to attack while Kota cries and becomes immobilized from fear. Izuku! Kota screamed. The villain, calling himself Muscular, was about to kill Kota when he heard a loud rev of a motorcycle. Both heroes and villains stopped what they were doing. The sound was getting closer, and so was a bright orange light in the distance. It entered the forest. Any moment now, and they would see who it was. The bright light was glowing brighter, and the sound getting louder. Mandalay dodged as a flaming motorcycle burst from the forest, and on top was no other than the feared rider. Magna and Spinner was scared, but they didn't need to be yet, because the rider didn't stop. It kept driving towards the mountain at full speed. Passing Izumi, and grabbing her, still driving at full speed. Izumi, hey. Let me go. Izumi flailed and turned to see who her captor was. Her face turned from red to yellow and into green, faster than a set of traffic lights. Izumi, our rider. Rider, stop flailing, Kota needs us. Izumi stopped. Kota? What does Kota have to do anything with this? Hey kid, why'd you scream out a name? Is this Izuku a hero? Muscular laughed. He reached out to Kota when a chain wrapped itself around his arm, burning his skin. Muscular screamed, and was suddenly pulled towards the mountain's cliff. What the hell? Muscular tried to pull the chain, trying to see who had the guts to interrupt his fun. He pulled as hard as he can like a fisherman, reeling in a huge fish, but only, this fish was a skeletal man on a motorcycle, holding what seems to be a living broccoli. Rider, do you like your catch of the day? Muscular. Izuku threw Izumi towards Kota and said, Hey kid, follow her. She's competent enough to save both your lives from these petty villains. Izumi got up and grabbed Kota, putting him over her shoulders and ran away. Hey pal, you looking to die or something? Muscular said, still trying to pull the motorcycle. Izuku looked at him, his fire burning more menacingly. Your soul is tainted, you will burn in hell until the day you will repent. Muscular successfully pulled the motorcycle onto the mountain. Don't get cocky, skinny man. Muscular smiled. The villain takes off his cloak and activates his quirk. The battle between the Hound of Satan and the villain begins. Muscular overpowers many heroes in both offense and defense, but the rider is far more powerful than this low-life killer. Muscular punches the rider, laughing at how this idiot took the blow. But what's weird is there's something solid in front of him. Muscular was surprised to see his enhanced strength and brute force didn't even make this skeleton flinch. Muscular tries to punch the rider again, at full power, leveling the ground, and cracking the mountain. How's that you weak Ivant? Muscular screamed, thinking that he the rider lost at least a leg or an arm. Well, it was okay. But I prefer if you would punch my left shoulder for a bit, it's kind of stiff. Muscular was shocked to see the rider still standing, without any signs of damage. Izuku walked slowly towards Muscular, his flames turning red. You called me an ant, Muscular, but even a tiny little ant is enough to make a grown man scream. Ha. Okay, enough playing, you'll go all out this time. Muscular was sweating, his voice was shaking a bit. So you're telling me that wasn't your full power? Izuku asked, laughing at this man's foolishness. That's right. I was just playing with you, but I'm a nice guy, so I'm going to give you a chance T-dash. Run away? Izuku cut him off mid-sentence. How nice of you, I didn't know you could be so considerate, considering you never let anyone go. Muscular fumbled his hand around his Pact, dropping some glass eyes in the process. He picked up a red glass eye and put it on. Izuku teased him. Ah yes, very intimidating. He laughed at Muscular. Muscular lunged at the rider and covered himself in muscle fibers to increase his strength. Izuku grabbed his arm and before Muscular could even react. Look into my eyes. Your soul is stained by the blood of the innocents. Feel their pain as your soul is dragged to hell, where your eternal damnation will be initiated in your pitiful God-given soul. A silent scream issued, as Muscular's body turned into a living husk, unable to think or even move. May your soul rest in peace, Muscular. Izuku rode his motorcycle once more and proceeded towards Kota's direction. 20 minutes ago. Shit. He's here. Izumi screamed inside her head as she carried Kota behind her back, running away from the monstrous man known as the Ghost Rider. Kota tried to get off her. Let me go. He needs our help, Kota said in a teary voice. Kota, we can't, it's dangerous, especially as that skeleton is there, Izumi said. Kota cried again. He knew that if he would go back, he would be a burden to Izuku. He knows it's Izuku because of what he wore. Izumi kept on running. She noticed that the blue fire was spreading quickly, and if she doesn't move fast, she and Kota's life would be in danger. Izumi's quirk is psychokinesis. She could influence a physical system without physical interaction. She used her quirk on both her and Kota to speed things up. If she tried to fly using her quirk, then she would be nauseated because of the drawback. The fire is spreading closer to Izumi and Kota. Shit. We're so close, Izumi swore, forgetting that she has a kid behind her. But Kota didn't mind. He knows that she needs to focus, so he mustn't disturb her. The blue flames were getting so close, so Izumi contemplated on making Kota float towards the base by using her quirk when she heard a motorcycle engine getting close. One thought went through Izumi's head. Screwed. Izumi tried to run faster, but fatigue overtook her. She tried to push herself when she was suddenly pulled upwards and into a motorcycle seat. Of course, Izuku made the flames around his motorcycle die down so that it wouldn't burn Kota, but he did think about burning his sister a bit. In front of Izumi was the rider, and in front of the rider, getting the VIP treatment was Kota. But Izuku cut her off. You shouldn't swear in front of children, Izuku Midorya. The rider spun his skull around, not even looking at where he's driving, and looked at Izumi instead. Izumi screamed. I will judge you when the time comes, but now, your calling is to protect this boy, Izuku said, disregarding the scream. Where are we going, Mr. Izuku held Kota's mouth and made a shushing movement. Well, we will be making an entrance, Kota, and I'm going to make sure to give you the best front row seat to see the downfall of the villains. Yeah, Kota said, his eyes full of stars. Let's do it. Izuku laughed. Izumi meanwhile was thinking, I thought he was a villain? Mandalay saw Tiger's attack getting weaker with each hit. Fatigue was overtaking him. Pixie Bob is unconscious and Ragdoll won't answer me. Where the hell is Vlad and Eraserhead? She thought to herself as she dodged another attack from Spinner, kicking him in the face at the same time. Damn woman, you really pack a punch, Spinner told Mandalay, laughing at how the hero was getting weaker and weaker by the second. Let's end this. Magna! Spinner shouted to his companion, who nodded and used her quirk on Mandalay, making her float towards Spinner, who was pointing his sword, ready to slice the hero the moment she enters his kill zone. Tiger tried to run towards Mandalay but was stopped by Magna, laughing at his actions to save his partner. Mandalay closed her eyes, bracing for the impact when she felt something wrapping around her leg, and was suddenly pulled in the opposite direction. Mandalay opened her eyes, just to close them again as she saw a skeleton on top of a motorbike pulling her with his hand outstretched. She felt herself being held by bony fingers, but strangely, it felt gentle. She mustered up her courage to open her eyes, and saw a skull an inch away from her face. She screamed into the night, and the students inside the forest thought she had died. Izuku dropped her with a thud on the ground. Mandalay tried to get up only to be pushed down by Izumi and Kota. Why Kota? She hugged Kota, while Izumi was telling her to rest. You ruined a great entrance, Miss Mandalay. Kota was really looking forward to it, Izuku said, wrapping his chains around his arm once more. Mandalay tried to say thank you, but she just stuttered. Save your breath. You're gonna need it. Your job isn't over, hero. There are students trapped inside the forest. I need you to find them. Mandalay nodded and told Izumi to take care of Kota while she finds her classmates. Now then. Let's start the purge. Izuku took a step forwards, sensing the sins of Spinner and Magna. Shit, what should we do? We should retreat for now. We can't take him. Magna and Spinner ran in the other direction, into the forest, headed towards their pickup point. Izuku followed on foot, thinking on how stupid they were for thinking that they can run from him. A Class 1B student was walking alone in the forest, having met a Class 1A with a bird's head. She ran because he told her to, and he looked unstable. She heard shuffling behind her and turned around to see two figures, running deep into the forest. She thought it was students, so she tried to call out to them to stop, emphasize the tried. Because she barely even spoke when she felt a hand close upon her mouth, accompanied with a bright light. It was warm. And it felt skeletal. "Shoo, don't ruin the fun," a hoarse voice said behind her. She felt scared. She put two and two together and figured that the one behind her was the infamous rider. She felt tears on her eyes when, "Don't cry, I won't hurt someone who made very little sin, your kind is rare, what's your name?" Izuku asked her softly, as to not startle her. "Ibara, my name's Ibara Shiozaki." Ibara replied. "Well, Ibara, turn around and don't stop walking, you will then reach a clearing, and in there you will meet Tiger, and a Class 1A student." Izuku let her go and walked away. Ibara turned around and was about to walk away, but her beliefs made her do otherwise. She believed that even villains deserve mercy. She did something that she thought she might regret. She followed the rider deep into the forest, keeping silent as to not alarm him. "I just hope that she won't be a bother. Let's get out of here." "Danny," Spinner said, coming out of the forest with Magnet on his tail. "What's wrong? Do you have the target?" Dabi asked calmly. Spinner passed him, telling Kurogiri to open the portal fast. "What the hell happened? What shook him?" Dabi asked Magna, who was out of breath. "The rider, he's here," Magna said to Dabi, who went wide-eyed. "Kurogiri, we have to go." "Not until we acquire the target," Kurogiri said calmly. "God damn it. Screw the mission. We will die if we stay here." Spinner screamed at Kurogiri, who remained unfazed. He calmly said to wait for the others. Spinner swore under his breath, while Magna sunk on the ground, exhausted. Dabi went into the forest to look for the others and the target. The faster they get out of here the better. But what they don't know was that a figure with an extinguished flame, still a skeleton, as to not make a certain someone behind him aware of who he truly is. Meanwhile, Shoto engages in combat with the restrained villain, known as Moonfish, using his ice to block the villain's teeth, enlarging Quirk. Moonfish proves to be highly skilled, being able to break through Shoto's ice and nearly hit Bakugo with one of his teeth, only to be intercepted by Shoto's ice. "Bakugo, don't use any type of ignition quirks like your explosion. It might ignite the poisonous gas." Shoto warns Bakugo, afraid of causing more chaos. Much to Katsuki's annoyance, Shoto was right. He would just make things worse with his quirk. He was a sitting duck. Moonfish continues breaking through Shoto's ice defenses with his teeth, enlarging Quirk while also using his teeth to maneuver himself around. Shoto analyses that retreat is not possible since they will get caught in the gas and concludes that he and Katsuki are in a bind. Out of nowhere, a giant shadow claw was about to attack Bakugo, when Mizo appears out of nowhere and grabs Bakugo, pleading for one of them to make a small source of light, just bright enough to calm Dark Shadow down. Mizo explains to Bakugo and Shoto that he and Fumikage were ambushed by Moonfish. He covered for Fumikage and as a result, he lost one of his tentacles. Consequently, the ambush caused Fumikage to lose control of his quirk that he was desperately trying to keep under control, Dark Shadow. "But while I was distracted, I didn't notice the villain was going in your direction." Hearing your loud voice, no doubts Shoto, Bakugo and Mizo turn their attention to Fumikage. Fumikage has been restrained by Dark Shadow, who is now larger and more ferocious due to the power of darkness. The empowered and berserk Dark Shadow begins taking control of Fumikage's body. Struggling, he pleaded for them to run away. Shoto, noticing that the gas was disappearing, he prepared a small fire around his left arm, but Bakugo stopped him. Dark Shadow suddenly used one of its enormous claw to crush Moonfish, destroying Moonfish's teeth. Shoto and Katsuki are surprised at what transpired. Dark Shadow throws the incapacitated Moonfish aside. With Moonfish defeated, Katsuki and Shoto manage to get close to Fumikage and use their quirks, which calms down Dark Shadow, dark shadow reduces in size and retracts back into fumigage, allowing fumigage to return to normal. Shoto was about to high-five Bakugo when he disappeared. "Bakugo!" Shoto shouted into the forest. He hears a laughter from above the trees and looked up to see a masked man holding a bright blue pebble. Target acquired. Somewhere in the forest at the rendezvous point, Dabi with Twice and Toga have heard Mr. Compress's report. Dabi notes that their only action now is to wait for their fellow villains. However, Dabi states that there is no gas in the air, or even tremors in the ground. "We're the only ones left, the others are not coming, we need to go." Kurogiri. Dabi turned around to see Kurogiri on the ground, with a skeleton standing over him. The world seemed to slow down for the villains as the skeleton lit up and used its chains to wrap around Twice's throat. In another part of the forest, Yosetsu is carrying an injured Momo with him while running away from the Vanguard Action Squad's Nomu. The Nomu cuts several trees down with its multiple weapon arms consisting of chainsaws, drills, and hammers to get to Yosetsu. The Nomu reaches him and is about to attack Yosetsu with one of its weapon arms. Suddenly, the Nomu's chainsaw arm stops. The Nomu retracts its weapon arms into its body and begins walking back to the Vanguard Action Squad's rendezvous point. Momo realizes that the Nomu is being called back because the villains have captured Katsuki. Thinking of a plan, Momo creates a button, which appears to be some sort of tracking device, and asks Yosetsu to weld the button onto the Nomu. Yosetsu does what Momo asked and uses his quirk to bond Momo's button onto the Nomu. As the Nomu walks away with Momo's button stuck on it, Yosetsu and Momo decide to make a run for it. Outside the forest, Mandalay and Tiger were tending to the now-awake Pixie Bob when they see Yosetsu carrying an injured Momo. After a brief explanation, Mandalay and Tiger proceeds to run towards the villains' rendezvous points. The villains, meanwhile, were having a staring contest with the rider. Twice and Mr. Compress lays of the floor, not moving an inch, with their face frozen in fear. Izuku was about to move on Dabi when he was blocked by a wall of wiggly green vines. Izuku sighed. "Damn it, she was going to be a bother, huh?" Izuku looked at Ibra and said softly, "Let me through, I don't want to hurt someone that is close to innocence in this worthless world." Ibra blushed at this statement but refused. She closed her eyes and made a gesture that was of prayer. "May the Lord give them mercy, demon." Vines, crucifix. Ibra's hair elongated and attacked Izuku, holding him in a crucified position. "Well, this is quite ironic, isn't it?" Izuku laughed, giving the villains to run, but they were confronted by Mandalay and Tiger, accompanied by Shoto, Mizo, and Izumi. They saw Ibra holding the feared rider down and the what was left of the villains trying to run away. They begun to fight, leaving Ibra alone with the rider. "Why do you side with them?" Izuku asked a praying Ibra. "I don't side with them, demon. I am trying to prevent you from committing more evil." Izuku laughed. "Tell me, which is more evil? He who kills evil? Or he who protects them?" "They are both the same," Ibra said out loud. This amused Izuku. "Precisely, and what are we doing now?" "I am. Let's say your words, killing them, and you on the other hand." Ibra's eyes widened, then Izuku burned the ivy and ran towards Ibra. She was scared until she heard the sound of a chainsaw behind her. She turned around and saw a red Nomu raising its arms to slice its unsuspecting victim. Ibra was pulled away by Izuku, the chainsaw missing her head by inches. "Who's evil now?" Izuku held Ibra bridal style and dodged the many arms of the Nomu. Ibra blushed, but she held on for dear life, afraid that if she lets go, she might turn into mince meat in a second. Izuku noticed that Ibra was shaking. "Did you hurt yourself?" he asked her softly. Ibra shook her head. "No." Not comforted by her words, his eyes were filled with concern. "You're really okay, right?" "I told you yes." Ibra huffed and puffed as she stared at the skull head of Izuku with a piercing gaze. This man wasn't as bad as she thought. Izuku put her down and told her to run, but she insisted on helping him. After a short argue, Izuku accepted her proposal. "Ahem, not that kind, readers." "Via Dolorosa," Ibra said, her vines speeding everywhere, wrapping itself on any being that's fortunate enough to touch it, and piercing them with tiny thorns, sharp enough to dig through the skin, making the victim stuck in the same position. Despite initially seeming very pure and kind, Ibra shows an unexpected vindictive side. This intrigued Izuku. I swear on my name, Vine, that the schemers will be judged, Ibra said to the struggling Nomu. Those are some strong vines. Izuku complimented her. With a slight smile, Ibra nodded. Izuku proceeded to move towards the Nomu with his chains burning red. Wait, please show some mercy. It may be mindless, but it deserves mercy, Ibra pleaded to the rider. But Izuku merely shook his head and said, sorry. All out of mercy. Izuku used Dominator's touch on Ibra to immobilize her, to stop her from interfering with his work. Izuku charged his chains with the power from hell to burn this soulless shell. As Izuku was about to plunge the chains through the Nomu's heart, he felt a sudden chill. He turned around and saw All for One, his arms looking like it was about to burst, his arms surrounded with black sparks. Izuku dropped his chains and rushed towards Ibra, his arms outstretched. All for One unleashed his attack on Ibra, just as Izuku grabbed her and faced the attack himself. Izuku won't be killed with such an attack, but it was enough to damage him completely, for Izuku to turn human again. Half the forest got blown away, as a thunderous blow could be heard from miles away. Mandalay and her companions turned and saw All for One. Mandalay was frightened. She just witnessed one attack that blew half of the forest away. Izumi was also shocked and so was Shoto, but not because of the attack. In front of All for One was a green-haired boy. Izuku had small scratches here and there, but surprisingly he looked fine. Although he does feel his ribs were broken. Izumi whispered. She was about to run towards her brother when she was stopped by Mizo and Mandalay. Don't, Mandalay warned her. So this is the feared rider, All for One said smugly. You don't seem that threatening. Yeah? Why don't you come over here and find out? Izuku screeched. He saw that Ibra was close to tears, the Nomu still wrapped in her vines. Seriously, how strong are these vines? It even withstood a large-scale attack. Ibra, run over to Mandalay's side now. Izuku ordered her. She complied by running as fast as she can, her vines breaking in the process, freeing the Nomu. The Nomu lunged at Izuku, swinging his hammer hand. Izuku dodged and used Dominator's touch to try and crush it. But All for One immediately sent another shockwave at Izuku. Izuku barely survived thanks to middle class regeneration quirk. The Nomu made a strange action and moved at speeds unthinkable to that of his size. I appeared behind Izuku and hammered him to the ground. The bastard's strange movement didn't end there. It again moved at incredible speeds and held Izuku, his face on the ground. The Nomu grabbed a chunk of his hair and pulled up to make Izuku face All for One. A pity, I was expecting more from you. Izuku laughed at this statement. What's so funny? All for One asked. Oh, nothing. It's just that I can do more than just produce red flames, you know? Izuku turned into a rider once more, but this time, accompanied with green flames. It immediately burned the Nomu to ashes. All for One's face could not be seen thanks to his mask, but Izuku knew he was scared. Young Izuku, you can't stay in that form for too long, its power is too great for you. A familiar voice ringed inside Izuku's head. All for One sprouted red tendril-like fingertips and used them to grab Kurogiri. Izuku saw All for One absorb Kurogiri's quirk. Izuku ran towards All for One, his chains moving like a snake on the ground, moving towards the masked man. As Izuku and his chains were about to wrap around All for One, he warped himself and his companions away. Izuku clenched the thin air where All for One once stood. Izuku screamed out in frustration and said, Ino rofla lay enine rub live woi iris ecum live I dna woi dnif live I tamid dog. Green flames surrounded Izuku, like a tornado from hell, consuming anything close to it. Then everything went black as Izuku fell to the ground unconscious. But before he was completely asleep, Izuku saw a green-haired figure run towards him. Izuku woke up to the sound of beeps. With his eyes closed, he tried to move only to feel something on both his arms and legs. Something was restraining him. It felt cold. It must be metal. Izuku opened his eyes and was met with a bright light. He saw a white ceiling and saw several medical appliances attached to him. He looked down and saw that the restraints were quirk dampening cuffs attached to the bed he was in. A sound of a door knob turning was heard. You're awake. A familiar squeaky voice said. Nezu, what do you want? Izuku said calmly. Despite what happened to him in the past, Izuku was now a completely different person. Thanks to Lucifer's gift of the Ghost Rider, his emotions were now in check. Well, first off, you faked your death and escaped Tartarus. You also made the #1 hero hate me and the guards, and you killed almost 100 people already, Nezu said with spite and hate in his voice. Izuku laughed and he didn't stop for 2 minutes. Do you really still believe that I stole from you? Izuku giggled. I hate villains as much as you do, Nezu, and I didn't fake my death. You buried my real body 6 feet underground. And I didn't escape, I was pardoned. Pardoned? By who? You weren't pardoned and you faked your death. Don't tell lies to me, boy, Nezu said in a deadly whisper. Izuku looked at him and turned into his Ghost Rider form. Since this form was a gift from the devil itself, it didn't count as a quirk. Nezu stepped back in shock and tried to open the door, but his hand didn't feel any knob. Nezu turned around and saw that the door disappeared. Izuku pinned Nezu to the wall. Listen to me, Nezu, your pride and determination is not gonna lead you anywhere good. Now will you listen to me? Nezu shakily nodded and Izuku covered them both in blue flames. Nezu tried to get away, afraid that Izuku would kill him, burn him alive, but Nezu didn't need to be afraid. Izuku held Nezu tightly. When the flames died down they were surrounded, guns pointed and quirks activated with their faces full of shock and fear of the sudden appearance. Nezu looked around and noticed that they were at the same place. Yes, the door is back. One police officer grabbed a quirk dampening cuff and threw it towards Izuku, ordering him to wear it. Izuku chuckled and wore the cuffs only to find it melting in his hands. They don't work on me, I should know. I'm not using a quirk right now. Izuku has to hold his laughter when he saw the fear etched in their faces turning into that of horror. Now may I explain? You may listen, but if you try to attack me, I will burn you. Izuku turned human again and explained in detail everything that happened to him. Most didn't believe until Izuku told them their secrets and sins no one else knows about them. You see? I'm innocent. Now can you let me go? Izuku asked Nezu. You killed Po? I thought you were smart, Nezu. I didn't kill them, they're just in a coma from which they will never awaken from. Nezu tried to argue that he still used his power to condemn these people into eternal suffering. But Izuku stopped him and told him if he wants to argue, then call the devil and God's angels. Izuku walked out of the room with no one stopping him. Freedom, finally I can go home. Izuku walked out of the hospital unnoticed and summoned his bike. It looked normal, but if you were to touch it, you would feel a soft pulse as if it was alive. Izuku rode it and said, Bring me home, my friend. The motorcycle, as if though alive, revved its engines and drove towards Izuku's old home. Izuku arrived home. It was nighttime, the lights on the living room were on, with 3 silhouettes. One was thin and pacing back, and for the while the other 2 had their hands covering their faces. Izuku went towards the door and was about to knock when he saw in the corner of his eye an old friend with his black suit on, accompanied by a man in white. Hello, Sir Lucifer, who's that? God. Izuku asked, politely bowing at his savior. Lucifer and the man in white laughed softly. The man in white spoke, No, I am not God, young one. My name's Gabriel, an angel. Izuku's eyes widened. An angel? Here? Did he do something wrong? No, you did not, young Izuku. He's just here to check on you, Lucifer told Izuku, who was slowly remembering that these beings could read minds. I see that you are doing well. Lots nice that you are going to see your family. I would give an advice, but it seems that you have already made your decision, Gabriel said. Izuku nodded on Gabriel's statement. Well then, we must go now, young Izuku, and good luck, Lucifer said, and he and Gabriel disappeared into the shadows. Izuku once again turned to look at his door. He knocked 3 times. The door opened and saw his father. Good evening, Mr. Toshinori. Good evening, Mr. Toshinori. Izuku's father went wide-eyed when he saw Izuku in his front door. Izuku looked different from before. He looked taller and his usually bright face turned sharper. Izuku's build was that of an athlete. Izuku let himself in his old home. He looked around and saw that nothing changed. Inko asked Yagi from the living room on who was knocking on the front door. Toshinori opened his mouth but nothing came out, so Izuku answered for him. It's me, Miss Toshinori. It's Izuku Midorya. Note that Izuku felt like he wasn't part of the family, so he kept his last father's name. Oh, and Toshinori aka All Might is his stepdad. Inko and Izumi rushes towards the front door and went wide-eyed when they saw Izuku. Izuku walked around his old home, his parents and sister still looking at him, unable to speak. It's still the same as ever. Izuku complimented his mother, which shook her out of her trance. Izuku? Is that really you? She said, tearing up. Yes, it's me, Izuku said with a small smile. Inko rushes forward, hugging Izuku with tears on her eyes. Izumi flinched as though she wanted to run towards Izuku, but Izuku looked at her and opened his arms, inviting her to hug him. She rushed forward and hugged Izuku tightly. It has been 4 days since they'd buried Izuku. Inko was crying harder than ever. She asked Izuku why he was still alive and where has he been. Izuku let go of his mother and sister, and told them to sit down. After a brief explanation, Inko was hysterical over what her son has gone through in Tartarus. Inko, why would they do that to my son? Izuku, don't call me son. Izumi, I'm going to confront Nezu about this, mom, don't worry. Izuku, stop it. Toshinori, Inko, I tried to tell Nezu that our son is innocent. Don't call me son. Izuku turned into a rider, with blue bell flames, glaring at the people in front of him. You lost your son years ago when he was diagnosed quirkless. I am here not as your son, but as a stranger, Izuku told his family straight to their faces. Please? No, Izumi, don't say please. I already forgave you, but know this, you have blood on your hands. Izuku got up and started to walk away. Izuku, we only did that to protect you, Toshinori said, turning into his All Might form. Izuku stopped and turned around, his flames turning red and his chains swirling around his arm. Protect me? The only thing you did, Toshinori, is saving your own reputation by hiding me away. And don't look at me with those pleasing eyes. You have neglected me and favored my sister, whom in turn bullied me and even forced me to try and kill myself 24 times, starting from when I was no more than a child. Toshinori looked down in shame, and Inko looked at Izumi with anger in her eyes. Izumi, on the other hand, had her face covered, crying under her hands. But Izuku didn't stop there. And you, Miss Yagi, you stare at your daughter with anger, forgetting that you yourself made your son go through living hell. Do you even know what food tastes like when a 4-year-old cooks for himself? Well, it tastes awful, but hunger makes anything look quite tasty. For years I haven't even gotten to taste delightful foods to quench my hunger, yet you say you did all that to protect me? Izuku left his family stunned at what they have done. Izuku drove towards an old abandoned home. That was where he was currently staying. On the outside it was old and unkept, but on the inside it was quite beautiful and clean. Thanks to Lucifer's help, he had a place to stay. Izuku was about to rest when he heard someone knock on the door. Izuku sighed. He was annoyed that someone followed him home, and that someone wasn't alone. Izuku walked towards his door lazily and opened it. What the hell do you want this time, Nezu? Excuse me? Izuku asked Nezu after hearing what he said. I want you and Yue. Nezu repeated. Although he did look like he didn't want Izuku to, he knows he must do it to keep an eye on this rider. And why do you think that I would accept? Why won't you? Isn't it your dream to become a hero? Izuku shook his head. It used to be, until I gave up, because my own father told me to. Izuku looked at Nezu with a blank gaze. You don't even want me there, Nezu? You're right, I don't. But it's necessary for me to stop you from causing mayhem, Nezu said with pride and determination. He got up and gave Izuku a letter containing the details of his entry to UA. Class 1A? Izuku smiles at Nezu. The same room as your sister and her friends. Yes, Nezu replied. Very well, but I am quite intrigued with that girl. Ibra in Class 1B? Can I go to her from time to time? Nezu thought for a moment. If I do that, you will join UA and stop this vigilante work? Agreed. Izuku stood up and held out his hand for Nezu to take. Nezu hesitated but took it either way. Glad we have an understanding. Nezu walked out, but Izuku stopped him. Nezu inhaled deeply and closed his eyes, irritated because he wants to get out of Izuku's way immediately. What about Bakugo? Izuku asked in a serious tone. What about him? I want to help you find him. No. No. Izuku repeated in a laughing manner. You do know you have more chances of finding this man with me, right? Nezu refused again. We want to do the hero work. You will stay in you. Please let us do this, young Izuku. Nezu pleaded. He wanted to show Izuku that the heroes will save the day this time. Izuku nodded and opened the door for Nezu as a sign of respect. Nezu smiled at Izuku and went out. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Settle down, Aizawa told his class. I have news that might surprise you. Lida interrupted Aizawa and shot up with his hand in the air. Is it about Bakugo, sir? Aizawa said no in a bored tone and looked at Yaoyorozu. She also had her hands up in the air. Then is this about the time in the camping trip, sir? Again Aizawa shook his head and said no. Now will you stop with the questions, you're annoying me. If you don't I might expel you idiots. The whole class stood silent with their breath held, thinking what kind of news their teacher has for them. Okay, good. As I was saying, the news I have is that you have a new classmate today. The whole class were in an uproar, especially Lida and Mineta. What is this? A new student in the middle of the semester? That's outrageous. Please be a girl, please be a girl. Aizawa rapped Mineta using his capturing gear, and told Lida to shut up and sit down. After they'd calmed themselves, Aizawa called the new student to come inside. Izuku walked in and smiled at everyone's shocked face. Mineta was screaming inside his head about a dead man coming back from the dead. Good morning everyone, Mina. Aizu. Why are you here? But Izuku cut her off and put his finger near his mouth. She went quiet as her vision faded into the deep dark voice. The only light she could see was a faint green flame in the distance. Then she snapped back into reality when Izuku was finished talking and took a seat at the back of the class. Let's Izuku, right. Izuku, wear your gym uniform and meet us in the field. We will see how strong your quirk is. Izuku stepped into the circle and gave Izuku a ball. The ball looked rubber, but Izuku felt that it was too heavy for a regular soft ball, must have metallic parts inside it. Use your quirk and throw this ball as hard as you can. Aizawa orders Izuku. But if I do I might cause some damage to the school, sensei. Aizawa shrugged and said, don't worry, the school will compensate for it. Izuku smiled and turned into his rider form and used enhanced strength and Dominator's touch combined with the eternal flames. A huge gust of wind surrounded Izuku as he stood there focusing all of his attack power into the little ball. Izuku stretched his arm and used all his strength in this one throw, causing the sound barrier to break and shattering all the windows in the school. His classmates fell to the ground and the students in the other classrooms shielded themselves from the shattered glass. Oops, he smiled apologetically to Aizawa. The class got up and started shaking. They couldn't even speak. Aizawa on the other hand looked at the monitor in his hand and his jaw dropped. The only person to reach this score was Uraraka, but Izuku got the infinite score as well. Izuku didn't deactivate the Dominator's touch, so it kept going until it was out of his reach. The students were dumbfounded and just looked at Izuku with amazement. Shoto on the other hand looked pissed. Aizawa proceeded with the other tasks. Have class 1A on their first day of school, causing Izuku to break all the previous record. The whole class and Aizawa was dumbfounded, even Nezu who was watching through the school's cameras. Aizawa cleared his throat and told Izuku to change into his school uniform and told the rest to go back to the classroom, because he would have a talk with the principal. That was your brother? But we saw you bury him days ago. Mina asked Izumi with stars in her eyes. It's a zombie. Stop shouting, Mineta, that was obviously a live person. Lida told a screaming Mineta. Then Momo spoke up, loud enough for the whole class to hear. Did you all forget? When he introduced himself he told us that he just looked like her brother, but they are not related at all. Izumi tried her best to hold back her tears, failing to notice Shoto looking at her. He was pissed at Izuku, so he decided to speak up. He's just an a-hole. He was quirkless years ago and he started hating us, that's why. He's just a jealous prat that started to tell stories to his parents. Shoto spoke. Yeah, I want to strangle him too, readers. Everyone went silent. Shoto though that they were trying to consume what he just said, so he kept on going. We had to beat him up to put him in his place. I mean seriously, all we wanted was to comfort him, but he started swearing at us. Keep going, Shoto. Shoto turned around shaking as he felt extremely warm hands placed on his shoulders. Please do continue your fantastic stories, Shoto. Shoto tried to activate his quirk but instead found himself trying to gasp for air as Izuku grabbed him by the throat, lifting him up in the air. I did tell you I would come for you, Shoto. Izuku laughed and dragged Shoto in front of the whole class, placing him onto the teacher's desk, deforming the wood supporting it, as Shoto was brought down with a crash. Now before we begin your tales, I would like some insurance. Tell them the truth. Izuku grabbed hold of Shoto's hair and made him face the frightened class. Shoto kept his mouth shut, so Izuku wrapped his chains around Shoto's waist, giving him the feeling of burning, yet he remained unharmed. Shoto screamed as the phantom flame licked his skin, burning his insides while maintaining their daily functions. Mizo was the first to speak up, protesting about Izuku's behavior. But Izuku just told him to shut up and listen as he will make Shoto confess. All right, I lied. I hated you since we were children. You got in the way of me and Izumi, so I was happy when I heard you were quirkless. Arg. I am sorry for bullying you while you were defenseless. I am sorry for making you try and kill yourself when we were kids. Shoto screamed in pain when he felt his skin burn more ferociously. He felt his skin tear away and stick to the chains wrapping around his waist. He felt his very soul scream as it tried to get out of its shell. Away from this immeasurable pain he felt, Shoto screamed and screamed, but no one seemed to come and help him. His memories flashed before his eyes, his mother dumping boiling hot water on his face, as Shoto felt the searing hot pain in his eye burn once more. He saw his father beat him up for procrastinating on his daily training. He felt his father's fist, blow by blow, causing ripples through his flesh as his father's experienced hands collide with the screaming young boy. Then it stopped. Shoto breathed more steadily, eyes closed. He felt the chains loosen and fall with a clunk on the classroom floor, while Izuku's hand loosened, making him fall to the ground and vomit his lunch. Shoto looked down at his waist only to see his body perfectly fine. He looked up and saw his classmates' disgusted faces looking at him with displeasure, while some looked at Izuku with pity and remorse. Mineta was foaming on the mouth. Congratulations, Shoto, you have been redeemed and forgiven by yours truly. Izuku laughed and grabbed the ashen-faced Shoto and placed him back in his seat. Izuku looked at his sister and shook his head in disappointment. He whispered in her ear so only she could hear. Hey, that rhymed. That was your chance to make up to me, but you blew it. Izuku walked away and went out of his classroom to see a gloomy-faced Ibra staring at him, her hand in the air forming a clenched fist, as though she was about to knock on the now open door. Yes? Izuku asked, now back in his human form. Oh, nothing, I just felt like there was something wrong. Ibra answered innocently. Cute, Izuku thought. Well, there was. I made one of the layers the honest, Izuku said with a happy-go-lucky tone in his voice which Ibra found suspicious. What do you mean? Ibra asked stubbornly. She looked at Izuku in the eye, making him look away while thinking, so innocent, so pure. All right, you got me. I was giving my bully a taste of pure bliss, for me at least. But don't worry, he wasn't hurt physically, I merely gave him a chance at redemption. What? Ibra looked aghast. You hurt him, didn't you? The Lord doesn't tolerate sinners. Chaos and bloodshed brings nothing but trouble. My sentiments exactly, but chaos and bloodshed already haunts us. Izuku laughed and dragged Ibra off into the UA roof. Ichie. What? When they got there, Izuku let go of her and gestured for her to come and look at the view. She hesitantly complied. Why did you bring me here? Ibra asked Izuku. Do you see a sight to behold? Izuku said while staring into the distance, through the trees and the sunny meadows, and into the sparkling city of Japan, where the sky was blue and the birds sang its song every day. Izuku closed his eyes, while Ibra looked at him amused. A soft breeze blew her hair, making her look more gorgeous. After a few moments, Izuku opened them once more and said, In every rainbow lies an end, and in the end is the beginning. Most people, just like myself, see the end as a start. When I thought it was the end, I found my new beginning, and so will you, Ibra. You will soon see that beneath the lovely view, there's always a darker part, where it remains unseen. Ibra pondered on what Izuku said, knowing that there was a hidden meaning. Izuku left her on the roof to enjoy the view and smiled when he saw her look into the distance. She was amazed by the view. She smiled so wide as she took in the wonderful breeze. She opened her arms wide and glorified this beautiful day that the Lord gave to the people. Soon she will see that underneath every face lies a scratched mask. Until then, she will live a life filled with lies that makes her believe that there is good in everyone. School just ended, the sun outside was setting. Aizawa announced that they would be living in a dormitory for the rest of the school year. Izuku didn't like this idea one bit. He would be surrounded by people he doesn't really like, and worst, he wouldn't be able to do his daily patrol. Izuku drove home using his summoned bike. The word motorcycle is making me lazy. He passed by many dark alleys, but when Izuku passed one, he felt a small tingle on the back of his neck. There's a familiar smell of a certain sinner in that alley. Izuku turned his bike around and slowly drove towards the alley. Through the dark alley was a small bar-like shack. Izuku sensed that Katsuki was inside the shack, and so was Shigaraki, Toga and Dabi. Izuku also sensed 3 more bodies underground. He knew that they were twice, Mr. Compress and Kurojari. They were in a coma because of its cleansing of their souls. Izuku walked away. He wanted Nezu to find them himself, since the rat was so eager on proving to Izuku that they could save Katsuki themselves. "What's wrong, honey?" Inko asked the crying Izumi as she got home from school. It's Izuku. I blew it, Mom. He gave me a chance and I blew it." She cried harder into her mother's arms. Inko hugged her daughter while patting her head, assuring her that another chance will surface and Izuku will forgive them. "It's okay, honey. Izuku will come back to us, I promise." Izumi nodded in assurance from her mother's words. She then informed her mother about the dorm system that UA will apply next week. Inko told Izumi to prepare her stuff early, just in case. Yagi wasn't home. He was busy finding Katsuki, and he's not okay right now. With the problem of Izuku and Bakugo, he's not sleeping well. Inko is worried for her family. She covered her eyes and hoped to God that a new day will pass where her family will smile again. "Okay, so here's what we got." Nezu slapped the papers into the table. "The League of Villains is on strong defense ever since young Midorya took care of their essential asset." Kurojari, Nezu then addressed Aizawa. "Do you have any leads, Shota?" Nezu asked him. "So far I have been tracking the child named Toga. She's trying to conceal herself in public, but images showed that she constantly sneaks into blood banks to steal blood," Aizawa said to the rest of the heroes while pointing at a picture of Toga wearing a blue hoodie and a face mask. "Did you follow her?" Midnight asked Shota. Shota nodded and proceeded to pass pictures of a bar-like shack in an alleyway. "I believe that's where they are keeping young Bakugo," Nezu said. "I hired someone from the police force who has a thermal quirk. He confirmed my suspicions when he stated that he saw a high-level temperature in the building," Nezu continued. "That must be young Katsuki, but how are we going to approach him?" Empty Lady asked Nezu. Aizawa answered, "Don't worry about it. All you need to worry about is the Nomu factory. We need you to destroy it, Empty Lady. It's essential and imperative that the factory will be destroyed." Empty Lady nodded in confirmation. Kamui Wood spoke up. "What about Endeavor? Will he be joining us?" "Yes, he will. And so will Best Jeanist and Gang Orca. They will be joining us in this mission, just in case that the leader of LOV will be making an appearance, but I doubt it. You can thank young Izuku for that," Nezu replied. "We will begin tomorrow." "Yes, sir." "My lord, many souls of the damned have escaped. They are heading towards the mortal world." A man clad in black armor spoke nervously to the old man in a suit. "Damn, and where exactly?" Lucifer asked his subordinate. "Japan, sir. I have also sensed that hundreds of those soulless beings are gathered in one spot. It would be a catastrophe if they managed to inhabit a body." "Thank you for telling me this, Abaddon, but don't worry, I already have a failsafe for that," Lucifer assured Abaddon. Abaddon bowed to Lucifer and walked away into the depths of hell to torment more sinners. Lucifer looked up into the non-existent ceiling and spoke softly. "Protect the innocent, my rider." Izuku watched from afar as a pro-hero dressed like a pizza man and knocked on the door to the lonely shack. Of course, Izuku was itching for some action, but he decided to just watch. When the door opened, the heroes immediately restrained the remaining villains. Bakugo was happy to see All Might. Izuku was disappointed when the heroes inside the shack didn't listen to the screams of the police officers as a bunch of Nomus appeared through a portal that was once Kurogiri's quirk. I should help. Izuku put his finger in his mouth and whistled a short, but sharp note. His motorcycle, as though alive, drove towards its owner, stopping in front of the now flaming Izuku. Izuku couldn't help but feel on high alert. It's just a bunch of lower-tiered Nomus, yet he has a feeling that something far bigger than All for One is approaching. The chains surrounding Izuku's arm unraveled and wrapped the Nomus before they could even touch a hair from the police officers. Izuku was about to burn the Nomu when it twitched and broke the chains. This shocked Izuku. No one can break the chains. It's impossible. Yet here it is, on the ground, laying there in pieces. Izuku willed it to reform as he watched the twitching Nomu stop with a sudden jolt. It looked around as if it was scanning its surroundings, before finally looking at Izuku. "Rider," the Nomu spoke. Izuku didn't know what to make of this, so he rushed forward and punched the Nomu to send it flying in the other direction, but the Nomu withstood the attack and gave Izuku a blow to the skull. Its strength was comparable to that of All Might in his prime. Izuku exchanged blows with it, causing a fissure on the ground while causing seismic waver to protrude from the center of the battle. This alerted the heroes inside the shack. Gran Torino was the first one outside, and what he saw nearly made his eyes pop out. Nomus. And one of them is exchanging blows with the feared rider. And by the shock waves, its strength is the same as All Might's. Izuku grabbed the Nomu by the arm and broke it. The arm remained limp, saying that it doesn't have any regenerative abilities. Izuku balled his fists and made the cursed flames envelope the rider's whole arm. Izuku gave the final punch through the Nomu's chest, burning it to ashes. Thinking that he defeated the Nomu, he looked around to see the other Nomus twitch and fall to the ground, shaking violently and emitting a screech. Midorya, a familiar voice, spoke inside Izuku's head. "Lucifer? What's going on here?" Midorya asked in a frantic voice. "Listen, I don't have much time. The souls of the damned that I took special care on, they escaped and will inhabit an empty shell, and those shells are the Nomus. If they inhabit one, they will gain immense strength. As a rider, I need you to destroy every last one," Lucifer told Izuku before his voice faded away. "Lucifer? Lucifer?" But Lucifer wouldn't answer anymore. Izuku took a fighting stance and shouted to everyone who could hear. "Everyone! Destroy the Nomus. The souls of the damned are using them as temporary bodies. They will wreak havoc if they are left untouched. Destroy them all. I repeat, destroy them all." Everyone who heard hesitated and wouldn't touch the Nomus, but Endeavor started to burn the ones he could reach. "What the hell are you waiting for? You hear the kid burn, destroy them all." Endeavor shouted in rage to the people who just watched. Scared, they started to do as they were told, but a scream suddenly echoed in the far left side of the battlefield. A Nomu was killing left and right, and it wasn't stopping. The bullets couldn't penetrate its skin, and damage-type quirks barely even damage it. And the problem was, more Nomus were turning into the dam's shell. Izuku destroyed the ones that were still twitching and writhing on the ground, so that leaves 6 Nomus that have been possessed. Izuku readied up for a big fight when he heard an explosion miles away from where he was standing. What the hell? Destruction could be seen everywhere. The Nomus were rampaging in the city, killing everyone they could see, and no one could stop them. 1,000 people died in the battlefield, both civilian and hero. But in the middle of it all, a fiery being could be seen battling the Nomus, burning them and decapitating them with a new weapon. Born from the cursed flames and combined with the metal of Cerberus, a scythe that glows green and burns hotter than the scorch of the sun, was being wielded by the rider. It was literal hell, but even in hell, there's a small glimmer of hope. An unlikely friendship was forged by both villains and hero. They wanted to reform the world, not destroy it. Dabi burned all the Nomus he could see, while Shigaraki disintegrates the ones that have been incapacitated. All for One is fighting with All Might side by side, forgetting their differences as they battle for the sake of the world. X3 spring-like arms, X4 earth manipulation, X5 fire manipulation, a huge burst of hot air as magma spewed out of his arms, burning the Nomus down to the bone. All for One. There are two more coming from the right. All Might shouted towards All for One as he tried to hold down three Nomus. United States of Smash. The Nomus were blown away, crashing into the broken buildings, impaling them with iron bars that went through their skin. Shit smoke was coming out from All Might's body. All for One, noticing All Might's shrinking body, quickly plunged his hand through All Might's left rib. All Might coughed up blood. He thought he would die here. All for Oh, don't talk, it's going to be harder for me to heal you. Meanwhile, the students of UA were trying their best to protect the civilians. A certain ivy-haired individual was using her quirk to stop the Nomus from killing them all. She was bleeding from the head, her arms broken from the impact. Flashback. Wonder where Izumi and Shoto went. Tsuyu asked the rest of Class 1A. They were looking for their friends who suddenly disappeared along with Lida and Yayarozu. They went around looking for them when they saw a fellow UA student, Ibra. Oi Ibra. Mina shouted enthusiastically, waving her arms in the air. Ibra ignored her and kept walking. Mina walked towards Ibra. Whatcha doin'? Mina asked a startled Ibra. None of your business. She shut down Mina coldly. Ah, come on, we're friends, aren't we? I prefer the word acquaintance. Ibra saw the rest of Class 1A. She tried to walk away when they stopped her. What? She asked, annoyed. Did you see a green-haired girl and a half-white and red-haired boy pass by here? Ibra shook her head. How about a robotic 4 eyes and a rich girl? Mineta asked, which earned him a slap in the head by Kirishima. Ibra noticed that another one was missing, not just 4. Excuse me, but what about Izuku? Is he not missing? He doesn't really hang out with us, and he always disappears, so nothing is really wrong with him not here. So you said. Ibra clenched her fists. If he's not here and there are students missing, then there must be something wrong. Just then a huge explosion was heard, not far away from them. I was right, Ibra whispered. What do you mean? Kaminari asked, his voice shaking. Izuku, he's up to something. Ibra cut her sentence short, her hair rapidly moving towards her fellow UA students, grabbing them close to her, Ibra's hair forming a dome. Everything seemed to slow down when everyone saw 6 Nomus rushing towards them, while a building was flying towards their direction. Ibra used her vines to protect them from the collapsing building, but the Nomu was right in front of her, so she shielded herself using her arms and vines, but the blow was too strong, breaking her arm and vines in the process of the 2 disasters colliding on one girl. And a flashback. Kirishima was bleeding everywhere, laying on the rubbled floor, barely breathing. Mina was using her acid to melt the building's parts surrounding them and the civilians, and Mineta was using his purple balls to make sure the surrounding area won't collapse. Ibra was close to collapsing, and Kaminari wasn't much of any help, and so was Tsuyu. This Nomu was just too strong for them to handle. Uraraka used her quirk on Ibra to keep her from falling. We'll get through this, Achiko said with a smile. Ibra sighed. Let's beat this thing and find Izuku. Izuku? Why? Kaminari asked. He knows what's happening here, I'm sure of it. A Nomu sent a barrage of attacks towards Ibra. Tsuyu used her tongue to pull Ibra away. She was light thanks to Uraraka's quirk. Kaminari used his support gear and shot the discs fired by the shooter, called pointers. It will stick to the point of impact. As long as Kaminari is within 10 meters of the target, his electric discharges will be drawn to the pointer of his choice, concentrating the discharge into a straight line. But Kaminari's attack only paralyzed the Nomo for half a second before sending a punch towards Kaminari's stomach, causing him to be on all fours gasping for air. Warp refraction. A bright light issued from Toru, an invisible girl that goes undetected by the Nomu, so she used this chance to grab Kaminari, and ran while Aoyama used his naval laser, piercing the Nomu straight through the chest. Aoyama puked as he saw the blood and guts spew out of the now dead Nomu. Achiko reassured Aoyama that he did the right thing and saved all of them, although this barely made Aoyama feel good about himself. Wait, I hear something, Jiro said as she was plunging her earphone jack into the ground. Her eyes widened when she saw another Nomu in the distance running towards them at high speeds. Shit. We have to go now. Shiro used his tapes to grab the civilians and Kirishima, who was still unconscious. Achiko used her quirk to make things easier for Shiro to carry everyone to safety. Ojiro meanwhile broke everything that might obstruct or slow Shiro down. Tokoyami wasn't much of help. He was busy controlling Dark Shadow from his emotions. But he tried his best to run with civilians on his back. Ibra couldn't move because if she does, the building on top of her might collapse and injure Class 1A and the civilians. Mineta tried his best to use his balls, FS Sake, to lessen Ibra's burden. Tsuyu meanwhile was holding Ibra up, trying to stop the bleeding from her forehead. The Nomu arrived with a bang that nearly made the rubble fall on Ibra and the others. Pray. A small gurgled voice issued from the Nomu, making everyone panic and run as fast as they can. Ibra, let's go. Tsuyu pleaded to the poor girl, but she just shook her head. If I do, then we would all die. Go on without me, the Lord will protect me. Ibra replied calmly to the shaking Tsuyu. Mineta grabbed Tsuyu and told her to run. We can't leave her. Sorry, couldn't resist. Tsuyu tried to go to Ibra, but vines wrapped both Mineta's and Tsuyu's waist, holding them together. Mineta ran with Tsuyu behind him. Yes, he was struggling. WC can't lose the chances he gave us, Mineta grunted with exhaustion. Tsuyu cried, praying to whoever was listening to her, to at least send an angel to protect Ibra. And on cue, Sari got lazy. A flaming chain grabbed the Nomu, throwing it away into the pavement. Izuku appeared, his coat ripped from all sides, and his skull showing signs of minor damage. Don't run from me, Ehol. You made a dent on my head, Izuku said, pointing at his skull. Remind me that I should drink milk more often. Izuku charged at the Nomu, pinning him to the ground, sending a barrage of flaming hot punches in the Nomu's face. The Nomu tried to retaliate but failed miserably as Izuku became much faster. So fast, in fact, that his punches became a blur, causing the Nomu to explode into a fiery debris. Izuku got up and faced the bruised Ibra. He saw her arms were purple and broken, while her head was bleeding. Izuku turned human, walked towards Ibra. It's okay. You want to know why? Izuku used his chains to pull the rubble away on top of Ibra, making her retract her vines, as she fell into the open arms of Izuku. Because I am here. Izuku held the sleeping Ibra close to his chest. Why are you here? Izuku asked the Nomu. I am here to free myself from this prison, the Nomu replies. The sky lit up red as rain started to pour, distinguishing the flames that surrounds everything. You think this is your prison? Yes, I have been made to pay my debts, but I will not be defeated by Satan himself. Izuku laughed and placed Ibra on the ground, covering her in the eternal flames. You think you can repay your debts in this existence? This is not a matter of debts, though debts you certainly owe. Izuku kicked a boulder towards the Nomu with superior strength, causing the Nomu to lose his field of view from Izuku as it blocked the boulder by smashing it into pieces. A fist collided with the Nomu's face, causing it to topple over and fall to the ground. It screeched for its comrades to fight with Hit, to kill the rider. We are the end of the world. The Nomu punched Izuku, making him cough out blood, as the Nomu's fist collided with now human rider. The Nomus arrived, all 13 of them, and they wasted no time and ravaged Izuku, giving him bruises and broken bones, making sure that the rider won't be able to retaliate from their barrage of attacks. They continued until 2 huge blasts blew them away from the bloodied green-haired boy. Izuku! All Might screamed as he rushed towards the broken boy, holding his flail body. All Might, now's not the time, All for One said. But All Might didn't listen. Izuku? Stay with me. All for One. Heal him. All Might pleaded, but All for One shook his head. I'm able to heal your wound, but the boy is in a much worse case. All for One faced the Nomus and announced himself as their creator. I made you to reshape this world, not destroy it. But now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to destroy what I created. One Noma laughed. Who do you think will win? The creation? Or the creator? The Noma teased. All for One was not amused and left All Might to cradle his young boy. You better hurry up, All Might. Don't give up because of the death of your boy. All for One sent a shockwave, blasting 2 of the unprepared Nomas away, while the rest stood their ground, growling at their new opponent. Izuku, please wake up, All Might cried as the rain fell on Izuku's face, causing him to twitch and wake up on the crying All Might. Do you really think I would die that easily? Izuku laughed and hugged his father. I only did this so I could see if I can forgive you, Izuku whispered. And did I pass? All Might asked softly, not letting Izuku go, giving him a tight hug. Yes, yes you did, Izuku said, giving All Might a hug in return. All Might. All for One screamed, causing Izuku and All Might to turn look at All for One, who was surrounded by the Nomus. The Nomus were playing with him, circling around All for One like sharks in the sea, making their prey panic and lose control. Izuku whistled, which made the Nomus to stop. Do you really think you bested me in combat? Izuku said, sending bloodlust towards the Nomus. You say that this world is a prison, Izuku told the Nomus, who in turn screeched loudly at the boy. Izuku spread out his arms and turned into an emerald green rider, his chains multiplying by the dozen, flames ascending from the ground, as the heaven opened up and brought down a dozen small blades, attaching themselves in hell's chains. This is my life sentence, the reason I was born, and the destiny which I have bled, and tortured, and killed. You call yourself disasters, whilst I am Armageddon. Izuku grew in height, towering over the Nomus as they all shook with fear. Some Armageddon, you're also a prisoner of war. You are born to fight. One Nomu said, though with a little uncertainty. Then to prove it, let there be bloodshed. Izuku rushed toward the Nomus. So the gods may know their will. The Nomus replied, speeding towards the rider. His many chains now embedded with heaven's blades whirled like a deadly snake, slashing at the impurities that are the Nomus, causing some to back away, while 3 fell as the blades went deep into the Nomu's core, destroying the body and sending the damned back to hell, where Satan was waiting with open arms, to punish the ones who trespassed on the mortal abode. Meanwhile, the 2 bearers of the most powerful quirks were trying their best to hold back the rampaging Nomus. All for One was using his acquired quirks to fight long-ranged, while All Might took a more dangerous way of fighting. Hand-to-hand. The Nomu's strength, like I said, has the power of All Might in his prime. The match would be even, but All Might has the upper hand of experience, but was quickly overtaken by a second Nomu, sending a punch, missing All Might's head by inches. Izuku, in the other hand, was throwing the Nomus around like a rag doll, the blades slashing through their innards, causing their guts to spew out in white-hot steam. Blood was splattered everywhere. The Emerald Rider was destroying the Nomus left and right, punching the ground, causing it to split open as lava spewed out, empowering the now overpowered rider. There were 2 left as the rest were sent back to hell. All for One, seeing that the Nomus were being taken care of, decided his help was no longer needed, and he disappeared using his newly acquired rap quirk along with the rest of the League of Villains. Ibra was waking up. She felt sore all over. Seeing that her arms were crippled, she raised her head and saw the towering rider, his bright emerald flames washing over her with warmth, making her feel protected. She smiled softly, seeing that the rider was not a devil, but an angel born from the ashes of hell, and nursed by the light of heaven. Izuku, noticing her, said, "It will be over soon." Izuku's blades clashed each other, transforming into a long broad blade, shining in gold, coated in heavenly flames. Mifairs 8 Fothgim eth Centiw's. Izuku made a long swiping movement, tearing the remaining Nomus in half, while bathing the whole of Japan in its soft warmth, healing the injured, covering the dead in respect. The red sky dispersed and was replaced with the bright new dawn of day. Ibra got up, her arms now fully healed. She rushed towards Izuku, who was human once more, and hugged him. "You really are an angel," Ibra said with a smile, causing Izuku to go red in the face. "Ook." Izuku looked at his left and saw All Might, with his signature smile. "Raise your hand in triumph. The camera's watching. You need to show them that we won," he said while pointing at the news crew who looked like they have been there the whole time, filming the fight. "Author, how the hell?" Izuku looked at Ibra and whispered in her ears, "After this, let's hang out." Ibra went red at his statement, and closed her eyes and prayed to the Lord that she wasn't imagining things. Izuku laughed and raised his hand high in the air, as he heard a distant roar and cheers. "A new dawn is here." "Well, he did it," Lucifer said to a man with violet hair and red eyes. "Yes, he did," the man replied. "How did you know that he was the chosen one?" Lucifer asked, curiously to the man. "I just knew. From the many universes and timelines I've seen, he's always there with his smile." Well, It was nice that you chose to save this world by convincing this world's god and me to participate, Sir Zack. Thank you. Lucifer held out his hand. Zack Necropolis looked at Lucifer with a blank stare, and took Lucifer's hand with his own, and shook it. The pleasure's all mine. Now if you'll excuse me, there are more timelines that need saving, Zack said, walking away with his hand waving goodbye. A rift appeared out of nowhere, and a figure of a man could be seen in the portal. From what Lucifer deduced, the man looked like Izuku, but he had yellow hair and wore a yellow suit. The man was the very being of chaos. Zack Necropolis walked through the portal, and before it closed, Lucifer heard him say, "It's time to stop this nonsense, Izuku cipher." Izuku was wearing a back hoodie with blue pants and red sneakers, and accompanying him was a green ivy-haired girl named Ibra. They were walking close, each keeping their hands to themselves, watching the people rebuild the broken city. Ibra smiled as she saw the smiles that was plastered across the people's faces as they bathed in the sun of the new day. They were slowly forgetting the pains and misery that happened 2 days ago, although a lot of tears was shed, as 156 unnamed heroes died to protect the people, and 1357 unnamed civilians died in the carnage that befell on Japan. All Might was still the #1 hero, his wound healed by the villain named All for One, who disappeared without a trace after the issued battle ended. Endeavor was injured from the battle. He was fashioning new scars and bruises that will stay with him for the rest of his life, but it didn't hinder his hero work. He was back in business the next day after the Nomus were defeated. Oh, and the rescue mission was a success, considering they got Bakugo back in one piece. The rest of Class 1A was in a bad shape but fine nonetheless. Izumi, Shoto, Lida and Yaoyorozu on the other hand were praised for protecting the civilians when the Nomus appeared. School was still put on hold as most of the teachers were helping to rebuild the city. So, what now? Izuku asked Ibra with uncertainty. He didn't know what made him say it, but when the battle ended days ago he asked Ibra to hang out with him. Ibra looked at the red-faced Izuku. Well, what do you want to do? Live and never. Izuku stuttered as he tried to form the words from his mouth. Ibra giggled at his failed attempt to start a conversation, but she found it cute. Suddenly Ibra felt something small collide behind her. She heard a small high-pitched grunt and a thud. She turned around and saw a small girl that had white hair and bandages. "Are you okay?" Ibra asked the little girl, who looked at her with fear. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you," Ibra said softly, which made the girl calm. Ibra helped the little girl to get back up on her feet and asked, "Are you hurt? Why do you have those bandages?" She asked with a stern voice. "Who would do this to a child?" "Excuse me, but may I have my daughter back?" Ibra and Izuku turned to see a man with a beak-shaped mask looking at them. "Excuse me, but who are you?" Ibra asked cautiously. "My name is none of your concern. Now my daughter, if you please," the man said with a blank expression. Ibra shielded the child from the man, but Izuku spoke. "Why does she have those bandages?" "Aries prone to accidents, so the bandages are to hide the bruises." "Look, you're wasting my time. Give me my daughter back," the man said, making a movement to remove his gloves. But he stopped because the girl named Eri ran towards the beak-masked man and held his hands. "Sorry for the trouble?" Eri said, looking at the ground. The man didn't say another word and turned to walk away from Izuku and Ibra, when Eri turned around and looked at Ibra in the eyes. "Help me," she mouthed to Ibra, who quickly went wide-eyed. She was about to move when Izuku held her hand tightly and whispered to her, "Not now, I'll save her, I promise," Izuku said, turning in the opposite direction to leave, dragging Ibra with him. "What the hell? That girl needs our help." Ibra hissed at Izuku, who in turn put his finger near his mouth and made a shushing noise. "That man is dangerous, and I can't fight him when there are civilians involved. They will panic thinking that there is another Nomu attacked," Izuku said with a harsh whisper. Ibra was about to protest when she looked around. She imagined the faces of horror and fear if an attack in broad daylight were to happen. She hung her head down, knowing that Izuku was right. "Save her, okay? Promise me." Izuku looked at Ibra, who was teary-eyed. She looked determined, so Izuku had no choice but to accept. It was his plan to save her anyway. Nezu. Izuku entered the principal's room, where he found Nezu playing with his new security detail made by a man named Cypher. "Ah, Izuku. To what do I owe this visit? Do you know something about a man with a beak for a gas mask?" "You mean Overhaul?" "No need to ask politely, Izuku. I'm pretty sure you already know anyway. Izuku chuckled. He closed the door and told Nezu about Eri, and how he and Ibra met her with bandages. I believe the girl's quirk is rewind. Nezu spun in his chair, and what about it? We already planned to raid the Yakuza and save the girl. No need to worry. Izuku grabbed Nezu's chair and made him look at Izuku. Do you know what kind of danger that girl brings? Izuku said with a harsh whisper. Nezu just shook his head. And here I though you were the smartest mammal. That girl's quirk can rewind anything she touches, even the molecular structure of our quirks. It could erase the quirks of the people completely. Nezu went wide-eyed at this new information and started to call the rest of the heroes. Nezu sighed. That is dangerous. But does that also mean it can turn you back into a human? That's a possibility. Izuku left the room and proceeded to his class, where he knew a certain blonde was ranting and cussing at his fellow classmates. Izuku entered and saw Bakugo cussing at Shoto. I didn't need your help, you damn extras. I got the situation handled. Shoto stood up and grabbed Katsuki by the collar. You effing idiot. If we weren't there you would have died in the NMU incident. Shoto screamed at him, causing him to receive a close proximity explosion on the crotch. Burnt sausage. The rest of Class 1A held them both back, while Lita was screaming his ass out. This is not how a UA student should behave, Bakugo. And you Shoto don't talk back to him, it will just piss him off more. Shut if you effing hedgehog. Bakugo screeched at Lita. Yaoyorozu was trying to calm Shoto down while Izumi used her quirk to keep Bakugo's hands from aiming at Shoto and Lita. Mineta meanwhile, used his quirk to stick Bakugo's arm together to his side. A loud back issued from the door. All of them stopped what they were doing and saw Izuku looking pissed. Would you kindly act your age and stop this meddlesome fighting? Izuku said while his whole body was slowly getting redder as smoke issued from his body. The rest of the class quickly complied without hesitation, but Bakugo walked towards Izuku and tried to punch him, but to no avail, because his hands were still stuck to his sides because of Mineta. Shut up, Deku. You're just a worthless FAXT-. Bakugo didn't get to finish his sentence because Mina slapped Bakugo in the face in full force, which made him fall down. This amused Izuku while the rest were shocked. Mina. And oh Momo. It's enough. Bakugo went too far. If Izuku wasn't there we all would be dead. Mina said through her tears. She cried while Yaoyorozu tried to comfort her. Bakugo got up. You beach. Bakugo ran towards Mina and used his headbutt her in the stomach. Now this was enough for the whole class to run towards Mina to defend her while Kirishima punched Bakugo in the face while using his quirk hardening to give more power through the punch. That was not very manly, Bakugo. You've gone too far, Kirishima said, shaking because he just punched his friend in the face. Please. Just stop this, Bakugo. FFF effing extra. All of you. You're all effing trash. Izuku grabbed Bakugo by the hair, harder daddy, and forced him to look into his eyes. Try saying that again, Bakugo. Or you're going to have a bad time, Izuku said as his eyes glowed blood red. They are not the trash here, Bakugo. It's you. Now if you dare do this again, I will make sure to take your quirk and turn you into something you despise. Izuku dropped the shaking blonde on the floor. Now then, everyone return to your seats please, Izuku cheerfully said with a smile. Bakugo was walking through the hallway. A few hours ago he was kicked out because of another outburst. Aizawa personally wrapped him in his capture gear and threw him out of the room. You're all pieces of shit. Those were his words before the door slammed shut, with a click of the lock. A-holes, Bakugo got up and decided to vent his anger by walking. Izumi POV. What is going on with you, Bakugo? You are more villain-like than before. Your pride is getting out of hand. I listened to the rest of Aizawa's class and decided that after this, she would confront Bakugo. Don't. I turned around to see Izuku looking straight at me. He looked angry. But not at me. What do you mean, Aizu? I whispered toward him, trying to prevent disruption in the ongoing class. Although, the frequent sniffles from Mina was already distracting enough. I mean, don't go to him. It will only make matters worse. He's my friend. He will listen to me, I harshly said in a kinda loud whisper. I looked back at Aizawa who was still talking. I heard Izuku sigh deeply behind me. He tapped my shoulder to get my attention, but I ignored him. Small time skip. His pride blinds his judgment, unlike last time. Izuku walked over to me as I was packing my books. I stayed silent and walked out of the room, leaving my brother alone in the now empty classroom. Izuku POV. I watched as Izumi walked out of the classroom to look for Katsuki. I decided to follow her without her knowing. Because unlike years ago, Bakugo is now unstable. It seems that seeing his most hated friend was better than him, not just in power, but also in charisma and charm, broke him. I followed Izumi silently as she walked through the deserted UA halls, looking for any signs of a fuming man. After a few moments she finally saw him, right underneath the stairs. From where I am, which is right behind a wall opposite to that of Izumi, Bakugo looked extremely pissed. The veins in his temple could be seen from far away. Izumi, Bakugo, let's go home. Bakugo, F off Izumi. Why don't you go kiss your brother's ass, huh? He's useless and you all defend him like some kind of hero. Because he is. He saved thousands of lives, yours too, might I add. A fat man wearing a brown furry coat came down the stairs, hearing their argument no doubt. I observed him and felt that he gave of a wired vibe. He was not a sinner, yet he was not good either. You might say that those are most people. But this man literally had no sins. And he had no good reads either. He was sporting brown pants and large leathery boots. His facial feature could be barely seen through all those shaggy beard. Though his beetle black eyes did give of a comforting aura. No one's POV. Who the F are you? Bakugo exclaimed at the mysterious man. Oh sorry. The name's Hagrid. A pro hero, although you might know me as Chaotic Crackhead 101, but I doubt it. I'm just a minor hero after all. That's a weird hero name, Izumi said politely to the bearded man known as Chaotic Crackhead. Yeah, I know. I chose that name cause my quirk makes people high, preventing them from fighting back. For a while, that is, he chuckled. Hey, go with a donut or something. We're talking here. Bakugo cursed at the poor man. But Hagrid merely raised both of his hands in the air and walked away, wearing a contempt look. After Hagrid was out of sight, Bakugo then grabbed Izumi. And as though something possessed him, he forced himself upon the poor girl. F-. I screamed out loud when the damned nerd pinned me to the wall. God damn it. I was about to take Izumi for myself. F-. He began to send punches to my face and stomach. My vision went blurry, and all I could hear were the sound of knuckles hitting my flesh. Is this what he felt when I used him as my punching bag? I heard distant protests that sounded like Izumi's voice. I could hear her begging Deku to stop. I suddenly felt a warm touch on my neck. I slowly opened my eyes and saw a Fangi skeleton. Kill me then, a-hole. I laughed weakly. Deku was about to kill me. I didn't even get to F Izumi. No, killing you would be too easy. I felt a hand touch the base of my mouth to where my cheeks were, and a sudden force made my head turn to look at the burning skull. Look into my eyes. Your soul is littered with pride and lust. You will burn soon, but a more preferable punishment must be given to the bad children. I was forced to look at his non-existent eyes. I felt my insides burn. My hands felt like they were melting. And my bones felt like jelly. What the hell is he doing to me? You, your friends, and your families. They will turn to ash as they see you now, not as a son, but as a stranger in their kin's skin. Get out, Nezu said in a deadly whisper to the crying ash-blonde man in front of him. Bakugo Katsuki was on all fours, begging Nezu to give him another chance. But Nezu looked away and so did the rest of the teachers. Please. I didn't what came over me. You believe me, right? Bakugo looked over to the woman known as Mitsuki Bakugo. Her face was contorted in anger and disgust. She knew her son was mean, but this came as a shock towards her and everyone who knew him. You fell, Katsuki? Mitsuki said through her tears. Beside her was Izumi and Izuku. Izumi was crying and wouldn't even look at Katsuki in the eye. Izuku, on the other hand, looked emotionless. You attempted to rape a student in MY school. And that student is your childhood friend nonetheless. Nezu spoke harshly, You could hear the rage quivering in his voice. He may be small, but he can be scary if he wants to. That same student saved your ass when you got kidnapped? Aizawa was the one who spoke this time. That was not manly, Bakugo, Kirishima said to the blonde. Izumi, do you have any words to defend your friend here? Nezu said. Izumi didn't spare a glance towards Katsuki when she said these following words. He's no friend of mine, and I don't want to defend a villain. Katsuki's world shattered. He strives to become a hero for FS Sake, and this speech says that he's a villain? Katsuki was not going to take that in a calm and kind manner. He rushed towards Izumi, raising his hand and aimed it towards the green-haired lass, ready to fire his quirk. The teachers didn't move, they just looked at him, and so did Izumi. She knew he can't touch her. UFN Beach. Not a villain. Katsuki opened his palm and readied himself for the biggest explosion he could muster. Nothing. Katsuki tried to use his quirk once more and aimed it this time on Nezu. Nothing. He looked at Aizawa, thinking that he used his quirk on him, but Aizawa wasn't even looking at him. Nezu chuckled, which made Katsuki turn to him, with fear evident in his eyes. Seems like we hit a snag now, did we, young Katsuki? What did you do? Katsuki asked Nezu, who in turn merely looked at Izuku. Let's just say, the devil took it. Katsuki rushes towards Izuku without a second thought and tried to pummel him, but Izuku grabbed his arm and threw him on the ground. Stop this, Kaken. You're embarrassing yourself, Izuku said with a small smirk. Tiv. Excuse me? Give me back my quirk. Katsuki screamed and ran towards Izuku once more, raising his arm to use his now non-existent quirk. But before he could even touch Izuku, everything went spinning for Katsuki, who immediately fell down unconscious. Well, that was eventful, said a man in the corner of the room. Yes. Quite. Thank you for stopping that pro-hero chaotic crackhead 101, Midnight said to the bearded fellow. Meh, I don't like violence, plus the kid would just make things worse for him if he goes on, and with that he left the room, carrying Katsuki with him towards the med bay. Equals 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 equals. Katsuki blinked. He opened his eyes and met a white ceiling, accompanied with a bright light. The med bay. Katsuki covered his eyes and tried to remember the following events that had happened. He was hoping it would be a dream, but, sadly, it wasn't. A voice too familiar to Katsuki spoke beside his bed. Go to hell, nerd. Already did. Katsuki heard the sound of paper being flipped. He looked to his left and saw Izuku reading the school's newspaper, and the front cover was his name printed in bold letters, with the following words. UA scandal. Student tries to rape a fellow classmate of Class 1A. Katsuki thought. After a few moments of silence, which the only sound that could be heard was the flipping of pages, Katsuki spoke. Give me back my quirk, she said softly. No, you don't deserve it. To be frank, you deserve to be in hell right now, for almost causing a suicide before you entered you, telling a certain someone to do a swan dive off the roof and attempted rape, Izuku said, not sparing a glance towards Katsuki, who was silently crying with his arm covering his eyes. Izuku sighed and put the newspaper he was holding down next to Katsuki. Remember what your mother said, Kaken? You fell? But that doesn't mean you can't come back up, and with that Izuku left. Katsuki was now alone in the ward. He sat up finally after a few moments, wiping his eyes, and grabbed the newspaper that Izumi was reading. UA scandal. Student tries to rape a fellow classmate of Class 1A. Izuku Midorya, also known as the Ghost Rider, daves his sister from an attempted rape by none other than a hot-headed blonde named Katsuki Bakugo. The principal, Nezu, expelled the student while the Ghost Rider took the young boy's quirk temporarily, stating he has lost his way. All he needs is a little push and he will get up again, but until then he will be quirkless. His family and friends shook the reporters away, not stating anything, but from what the sources say, they are currently hoping that young Bakugo would come back to them, and when he does, they will welcome him with open arms. Katsuki closed his eyes and went to sleep. I will make things right, Mom, I promise. Shit. Overhaul ran through the scorched hallways as he tried to escape his inevitable doom. He passed the bodies of his fallen comrades, They're not dead, but they're not alive either. Don't try to run from the devil, Overhaul. Overhaul stopped in his tracks, because in front of him was a skeletal figure, burning in the everlasting flames of hell, its chains wrapping around it like live snakes. Chow. How did it come to this? Flashback. Overhaul just finished breaking Eri and reforming her using his quirk. She was crying in pain. But he didn't care. All he cared about was his products. The world was corrupted with evil known as quirks, and he will do anything to stop it. The so-called League of Villains are just a bunch of nobodies, who helped heroes after making their failed creations. F.I.N.G. pathetic. Stop with your crying, Eri. It's annoying. Overhaul spoke to the little girl, who was curled up into a ball, crying her eyes out because of the pain. Don't show emotions. You're a curse. You don't deserve emotions like us humans. Overhaul walked out of the room and locked it. He threw the key towards one of his men wearing a bird mask. Make sure she doesn't escape this time. Or you're going to be my next lab rat. Why, yes, sir. The henchman ran towards the door and stood over it, his hands behind his back, trying to ignore the sound of whimpers behind the door. Overhaul got into his office. He planned to surprise the heroes. He knew that they would come and try to take Eri from him in a few weeks' time. He pressed a button calling one of his men to his office. When the man arrived, Overhaul told him to prepare the bullets when the fire alarm went off. What now? A huge explosion occurred a floor above them. Are the heroes here? Just then the man he ordered to guard Eri's room came bursting through his door. The henchman was covered in soot. Sir, the writer's here. The writer? Shit, I forgot about him. How could I forget about him? He's the most ruthless hero. Why are you here? Where's Eri? Overhaul asked the gasping henchman. That's the thing, sir. Eri is very sad right now. So I comforted her, the henchman laughed. Then his laughter turned into a sneer, his body slowly being covered in flames, his skin melting in the flames, exposing the bones. Writer Overhaul shook. He ran out of his office, dodging the flaming chains. Fly away, little crow, the writer called from the distance. He was merely walking, pressing his hands against the stone walls, turning them into magma. Flashback and Chow. How did it come to this? Overhaul spat through his mask. You, Overhaul, are sentenced to the 5th floor of hell. Lucifer has a special place for the abusers. Get away from me. Overhaul screamed and planted his gloveless hands onto the floor, causing a massive shockwave as sharp spikes appeared beneath the rider. Each spike went through the rider, but Overhaul wasn't finished. Overhaul once more used his quirk and made the floor underneath the rider open up and swallow the rider whole. Overhaul laughed at the rider's demise, but it quickly turned into a sneer when the floor bubbled up and melted. Out came the rider, his chains pulling him up like tentacles. You done playing? The rider laughed demonically. At incredible speeds the chains wrapped around Overhaul's neck and pulled him close. For God is graceful, his grace will never end. For it is only God who gives you peace and rest. God is the creator of all things we see. By faith I believe his image in me. For on my loving hands, you will pay the penalty for sin, like a needle in hay. Because this body will never surrender and never hinder. I am not a drop from the ocean, I am the ocean. The rider forced Overhaul to look at him in the eyes. And with that, Overhaul was sent down into the void. Never to come back. Let's go, little one. Izuku held out his hand for Eri to take. She was hesitant at first, but his kind demeanor made her feel warm and protected. She took his hand and walked through the flames like it was nothing. Are you afraid? No. You should be, Eri. Fear is what gives us courage. Izuku held Eri in his arms and walked out the door, bathing Eri in the sun's bright light. Am I going to be okay, mister? Eri asked in a shaking voice. That's something you need to see for yourself. Just then, men wearing police vests and heroes accompanied by Nezu ran towards Izuku and Eri. Izuku? What the hell happened? Nezu asked frantically. I saved someone who needed saving, Nezu. You took too long, so I had to act. Izuku said calmly, wrapping his arms around Eri to shield her from the flashing lights, causing her to get drowsy as fatigue overtook her senses. That's very noble of you, young man, But this action can't be justified. Nezu had to hold in his scream to not wake up the child who fell asleep in Midorya's arms. Yes, it can be Nezu. After all, you exist in the council. Izuku left without another word, leaving an amused Nezu in his wake. Hello sis. Izuku. I just saw the news. Gasp, who's this adorably little thing? Izuku Midorya spoke too fast for Izuku to register, but he deduced what she said anyway. Her name's Eri. I want you to take care of her while I do some work. Izuku handed the sleeping Eri towards his sister, who immediately cuddled with the small child. Izuku chuckled at his sister's actions. He proceeded to go through his nightly duties. When an hour into his work, he felt a presence he knew he had to meet. Shadow Knights. Izuku turned around to meet a man in black armor. Good to see you again, young Izuku. The man called Shadow Knight walked to the flaming skeleton and shook hands with him, the flames licking his armor. How long has it been since the last time I saw you? 5 years? Izuku asked his masked friend. Yep, I still remember that time when you got scared seeing me coming out of the shadows. Shadow Knight laughed at the past Izuku. Izuku also laughed when they heard a scream in the alley behind them. Let's reminiscence later, because now it's time for a beatdown. Shadow Knight pumped his fists together and disappeared into the shadows. Izuku followed his old vigilante friend and saw a woman in her mid-30s about to be raped by 2 men. The night is darkest just before dawn. And I promise you thugs, the dawn is coming, Shadow Knight said, and right in cue, Izuku dropped down right beside him. And the dawn is here. The thugs tried to run, but were immediately chained down by both Shadow and Flame. Wait, please. One of the thugs pleaded. But Shadow Knight knocked him out. Izuku was about to use his penance stare when Shadow Knight stopped him. Let's make the police take care of them. Why? Because even the worst person can become good, if they just try. Izuku chuckled. I see that a certain skeleton dug deep in your brain, huh? Shadow Knight laughed and said goodbye to Izuku. Sis, I'm here for Eri. Izuku called through the door. His sister Izumi reluctantly opened the door and handed Eri to Izuku. Thanks sis. Now Eri, would you like to meet your new family? Izuku asked the little girl. Family? Eri asked nervously. Yes, family. Izuku held Eri's hand and walked towards a restaurant where Ibra was waiting. Ibra. Izuku. You scared me. Don't pop out like the Ibra cut of mid-sentence, when she immediately dashed forwards and hugged Eri. So cute. Ibra squealed. I must admit you're scaring me. I've never seen this side of you, Izuku said, causing Eri to laugh. Ibra, this is Eri. Eri, this is Ibra, your new mother. At those words, Ibra DXE crashed. Eri on the other hand hugged her new mother. Then who's my papa? Eri asked. Izuku. Ibra immediately spoke, causing her to blush profusely. Izuku just laughed. You're my new papa? Eri asked Izuku, who just nodded. But there are something that you must know, Eri. Izuku kneeled down. That even on the darkest time, there's always a shimmer of hope. Let it be an angel of the devil. Either way, both parties will do you good, as long as your heart is in the right place. Izuku was walking home from school after a long day of being a training dummy.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.